Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Sorry for being late Tsuki-san, the paperwork just wouldn't leave me. JGG. Naruto stuttered with wide eyes, his pupil zooming out in shock as he stared at the old man in his Hokage robes, walking towards them. You've grown Naruto-kun, or should I say, Shinigami. An amused smile on his slightly wrinkled face while Naruto just stared at him shock. Why you can see me? He asked while Tsuki and Ayame were smirking at his flabbergasted expression. If you mean a young man with blonde hair, blue eyes, 3 whisker marks, holding a large zanpakuto and sporting an expression like his ramen was stolen, then yes, I can see you. Hiruzen replied with a chuckle, making Ayame giggle while Naruto just huffed in annoyance as he placed Hinata on his shoulders, catching it in midair. Noticing Rangiku and Shiroi walking towards them, Tsuki spoke, "Ah. There's our guest Hokage Dono." Turning his head to the right, he saw a blonde-haired woman coming towards them along with Shiroi. Immediately his eyes traveled down to her revealed cleavage, getting glued to the sight as a perverted grin spread across his face. Now that's what we call a golden Ika. Chestnut woman, he thought when somewhere another white-haired pervert sneezed. Naruto's eyes began to twitch as he watched the old pervert shamelessly ogle Matsumoto. Your nose is bleeding, you old geezer, he muttered with a scowl present on his face while Ayame too frowned at their Hokage. Reaching the group, Rangiku was not so surprised to find the old guy staring at her chest. Rangiku-san, this is the Sandaime Hokage of our village that I told you about last night. Tsuki deliberately spoke loudly, trying to get him out of his trance but to no avail. Getting fed up with his staring at her chest like that, she spoke with a forced smile. These do not talk. My mouth is up here, Oji-san. And finally he snapped his head to face her, an expression of horror on his face that such a beautiful and developed lady had called him, Oji-san. Oh Oji-san, he muttered in disbelief when he heard muffled laughter behind him. Turning his head back, he saw Naruto and Ayame quietly laughing to themselves as he glared at them. Serves you right, Arrow Gigi, the blonde thought when his eyes fell on Rangiku, who too was staring at him. She had that unknown look in her eyes as she smiled at him, her cheeks a light shade of red while he stopped laughing abruptly, his cheeks red when she winked at him. His blush deepened before he averted his gaze. Why was she staring at me like that? He thought in nervousness, an odd unknown sense of giddiness filling his form. Meanwhile Hiruzen though smirked when Naruto stopped laughing abruptly, thinking he had intimidated the boy with his glare. Hey, I still haven't lost it, he mused with a proud smile on his face when his expression immediately turned to, don't with me, Hokage look. I apologize for my rudeness Rangiku-san, he expressed seriously with a bow. It's okay Hokage-sama, she uttered awkwardly with a smile when Sarutobi gave her his grandfatherly smile. His eyes though then settled on the silver-haired woman standing beside Rangiku, his expression now melancholic. Shiroi-san, he addressed softly, making the said woman look at him, I'm sorry that you had to die at such a young age. It really is unfortunate. Shiroi smiled sadly at him, her eyes pained when she replied, it's alright Hokage-sama. I guess this was as far as I was supposed to live. But, dying isn't bad too, I think. There's another world to explore, you know, it would be a matter of time before I go to Soul Society. Naruto though lowered his head in sadness at hearing that fact, she was the first true friend he had made in his life. And he knew that she would leave just like other souls one day, but it really pained him to not be able to see her again. Hiruzen though was smiling at the optimistic woman in front of him. She was ready to move on, and he hoped to a better place. Matsumoto however had put a comfortable hand on her shoulders, giving her an encouraging smile, making the silver-haired plus return the gesture. Deciding to change the subject, Tsuki said, "So Hokage Dono, I hope no one saw the hollow or felt the disturbance caused by it when it landed on Naruto's apartment." Actually, there were a few Chunin, who were on patrol duty last night, heard the ruckus caused by it. They had checked the area to find nothing but some shops and apartments damaged. They had immediately reported to me. But that's taken care of, I just stated that it was a fire accident. Unfortunately though, some people were injured this time, but they are not seriously wounded, he replied with a serious expression, making the old Shinigami nod with clenched fists. They couldn't afford to be late the next time. This time people were wounded, next time they could die. About those Chunins, were they suspicious that something else may be the cause of this? Ayame questioned, making the Hokage turn to her. Yeah, I have a hunch that they suspect this of not just any ordinary accident. They told me that as they got closer to the location, they felt a bit heavy and a foul presence in the air, he uttered, making her nod grimly while Naruto just listened to them intently. Probably due to the hollow's lingering ryutsu in that area, Matsumoto deduced, making them nod when Naruto intervened. Then does that mean that Tsuki Oji and Ayame-chan usually take care of those hollows while you handle the after effects and any damage, so that civilians and shinobi of our village don't get suspicious? This time, it was Hiruzen's turn to get surprised. Well, yes, that's what I usually do, aside from governing the village, that is. Clearly his tone held an impressed edge to it. He hadn't expected the boy to pick up so quickly, but well. Tsuki had told him early this morning when they had met in his office. And the question I'm dying to ask, how do you know about the Shinigami and all? Naruto asked in anticipation as he awaited his reply when Tsuki answered. I told him, making Matsumoto's eyes widen. But that's against the codes of a Shinigami. You can't tell a human about us. She verbalized in surprise while her eyes, which usually were jovial and carefree, were sharp. How can they be so careless? But I'm a human too. Naruto spoke in confusion, making her look at him, her eyes getting softer. You're an exception, Naruto. You beforehand were unconsciously releasing a high amount of Raryoku in your physical body. I had to tell you everything because eventually the hollows would target you, just like yesterday, and so that you should at least know what's happening around you. He nodded in understanding, but the light scowl on his face indicated that he was troubled by something. Rangiku-san, Tsuki began, gaining her attention before he continued, things for a Shinigami here work differently. The Shinigami from Squad 0, who serve the Spirit King, as you know, airane to different geographical areas in this world just like the other human world. As I stated before, there was a guardian Shinigami responsible for Konoha too until I came. But you see, guardian Shinigami work differently than us. Since most of the Shinigami in Squad 0 were previously captains of their respective squads in Gote 13, you should know that there were some researchers who were promoted to be a part of Squad 0 too. Hence, since the Spirit King's realm possesses these captain-level researchers, they have some mind-blowing technology too. One of their inventions is the Kaikaiso-shinki, account removal spirit device. It is much more effective than the Kikenshinki and focuses on removing specific memories instead of just influencing them like the Kikenshinki does. He spoke seriously when Naruto intervened. But why don't they just simply use this Kikenshinki instead of this Kaisu? Well, whatever you said earlier, he said with a frown, an irritated expression on his face while Shiroi and Rangiku were giggling at him quietly. Kikenshinki, Naruto, is a device which is usually limited to a user's imagination. If a person here sees a Shinigami or a hollow, Kikenshinki influences their memories based on their imagination. However, it does not work in every person's case. If the victim is a spiritually aware one, most likely that of an elite Junin and Cage's level, then the Kikanshinki sometimes fail to influence their memories. To avoid such cases, those guardian Shinigami use the Kaikaiso-shinki to just remove those fragments of memories. Moreover, it can be used on a widespread scale instead of just one person, he finished while Matsumoto had to say, this device was really something. But still, this does not explain my question, she uttered with a frown while Naruto just concentrated on absorbing as much information as he could. Ah yes. You see, there is this one problem for me, who currently is in charge of Konoha as a Shinigami. I don't have the Kaikaiso Shinki. I did ask the previous guardian to lend it to me so that I could analyze the technology used and possibly create one for myself. But as I told before, they are extremely strict in following their rules and hence he didn't give it to me. All of them just remind of that stuck-up Hyuga clan, the old chef grumbled at the end before he continued. So as you see, this created a problem for me. I knew that whenever a hollow would attack, even if it is rare, it would cause ruckus leading to the shinobi here reaching the site. And obviously they would feel threatened and would be able to at least see the silhouette of the hollow, or mine. Then, obviously they would throw jutsu at the hollow or maybe even me and in the process raise their chakra levels which would make it visible to the Junins, and Hokage Dono here obviously. To solve this problem, I needed some help. So who better than the village leader itself, the one who could just claim it as some form of an enemy attack or an accident. Rangiku's side, really matters here were much complex than in the other human world. But she understood Tuki's position, and it was risky, but a smart move to tell the village leader about this. And you immediately believed all this, Gigi? Naruto asked in mild surprise when Hiruzen, who had been quiet before, replied. Well, it was not like I haven't seen a Shinigami before. The Shiki Fujin, dead demon consuming seal, of the Yondaime Hokage did summon a Shinigami after all, he said when Naruto interjected. He could summon a Shinigami. A shocked expression on his face making Sarutobi nod when Tuki spoke. Yeah, and that Shinigami was most probably from the Spirit King's realm. Not much is known about it actually. Rangiku was not surprised though considering the elder Ichiraku had told her the previous night. So Gigi, not that I'm complaining or anything, but why did you come here? The whiskered blonde asked. I came to check on you, Naruto-kun. You are now a Shinigami, so a big responsibility rests on your shoulders too, nay. And the graduation exams are in 1 month. You'll have to train hard this time, and I think Tuki-san can help you in more ways than just one, he verbalized with that mysterious smirk while Tuki too smirked back as he nodded back at him. Naruto though could only watch the exchange in confusion. Have these old geezers gone senile? He pondered with a sweat drop. So Tuki-san, I guess unofficially you work for the Spirit King, right? Rangiku asked while Shiroi yawned, she was getting bored. Who said it was unofficial, Rangiku-san? I'm an official substitute Shinigami of the King's realm, the ramen chef spoke with a smirk making their jaws drop before he pulled out something. Here look, this is my badge, it was black in color having a pentagonal shape, a white skull in the front which was drenched in yellow flames. Naruto's eyes though twinkled as he stared at it dreamily while Tuki's smirk widened at his expression. That is so cool, Oji-san. He exclaimed excitedly. Certainly looks colorful than the one we gave to Kugo Ginjo, Matsumoto thought as she stared at the batch. Then does that mean Ayame-san too is a substitute Shinigami? Shiroi asked, this time making Naruto look at Ayame curiously, who blushed lightly under his piercing gaze. No, you can say I just work under two-san, she uttered while squirming a bit under his gaze as he smiled at her. Then Oji-san, can I work under you too? I too want to those hollows and protect Konoha like you guys do. He spoke with big watery eyes, an eager expression on his face making Ayame, Rangiku and Shiroi giggle at him. You can, but not right now, he said with a smirk. But why? I'm already a Shinigami, he exclaimed with a childish frown making the old chef shake his head in exasperation when Hiruzen answered with a chuckle. You have to get strong enough, Naruto-kun. Right now, you may possess a high level of Raryoku, but you don't know how to control it and use it in battle effectively. In simple words, you need to train, just like Ayame-chan did, while the blonde just frowned in thought. But I totally kicked that hollows yesterday. He couldn't even see me. That hollow was a pretty weak one, Naruto, much weaker than the ones that usually come. That's why I'm worried right now. A hollow that weak shouldn't have known how to use the special garganta. There really must be something going on in Hawako Mundo, Tsuki pondered loudly as he sported a thoughtful expression on his face. That was a weak one. I think I can take on stronger ones too, he spoke with a serious expression, clenching his fists while Matsumoto couldn't help but admire his confidence and determination. Hiruzen though just pinched the bridge of his nose, he knew Naruto would be stubborn in these types of matters. Fine then, seeing as how stubborn you are being here, next time a hollow pops out, you take it on and see for yourself, Tsuki said with a sigh making Naruto grin brightly. You wouldn't be disappointed, Dadbao, he exclaimed making them chuckle when suddenly beeping sounds broke the silence. Both Rangiku and Tsuki took something out, revealing it to be Denryashinki while the latter had his eyes widened in shock. A hollow so soon? It just appeared yesterday, this has never happened before. He thought in shock before turning his eyes towards Naruto. Is it a hollow too, San? Ayame questioned with a grim expression making the old chef nod while Hiruzen too had a surprised expression on his face. Both Tsuki and stared at each other, as if silently conveying a message to each other when the Hokage suddenly vanished in a puff of smoke. Hey, what's happening? Why did Gigi left? And what's with this weird sound? And you said hollows rarely appear here, Naruto asked, staring at Rangiku as she fiddled with the strange machine. I don't know, but I guess you can test sooner how strong you are. Ayame, go with Naruto, Tsuki said with a smirk as he gave the Denryashinki to her making her nod. I'm going too, Matsumoto said with a serious expression making Tsuki nod. Naruto-kun, hey, wait up. Ayame yelled when the elder Ichiraku turned his head to see the blonde already running towards the exit. Hurry up, Ayame-chan. We gotta get to that hollow. He yelled over his shoulder as he climbed the ladder in just a few steps. Ayame though just shook her head. He's really reckless, isn't he, Rangiku-san? Turning her head, her eyes widened to find the blonde Shinigami missing there. Oi, Naruto. Wait for me. I'm coming too, Matsumoto yelled, now out of the arena while Ayame's sweat dropped. Well, aren't those two similar? Nay, Ayame. Tsuki said while chuckling, turning his head to find no one but Shiroi, his eyes now twitching in annoyance. Ah, hey, I think she too has already left, Shiroi spoke with a nervous smile while Tsuki's expression grew serious. This is getting serious. Never has it happened before that two hollows have attacked one after another. I really wonder, just when Rangiku-san arrived tomorrow, a hollow had immediately appeared over Naruto's apartment. And now just after Naruto became a Shinigami, another hollow appears the next day. This can't be just a mere coincidence. And this hollow is strong, I can sense its Ryutsu even from here. I wonder if I should go. Nah. Ayame should be easily able to take it out, and it would be a good experience for the kid too, he inwardly cussed over the matter, trying to unveil the mystery surrounding these recent events. Konoha. Rooftops. Hey, Naruto, wait up. Turning his head back, he saw Rangiku catching up as she jumped through the rooftops with amazing agility and speed. I can sense it's Ryutsu this time, Rangiku-san. It's just a little far away, Naruto spoke as they continued to hop at blurry speeds. Landing down, they found themselves at the entrance of a large district. This is the Uchiha clan district, Naruto muttered as Rangiku gazed at the traditional style architecture of the buildings when they suddenly felt the air itself getting thicker. Such foul and powerful Ryutsu. This is a much stronger one than yesterday, she thought as both of them dashed through the entrance, running past all the buildings. Just ahead of us, she spoke when they heard that familiar howl followed by a sound Matsumoto wasn't familiar with. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard that voice. Suddenly increasing his speed, he turned a corner to stumble upon the scene of a black-haired woman spiting a large fireball from her mouth, in front of her a giant hollow. Makoto-san. He thought in alarm upon seeing her engaging a hollow, the fireball colliding with its stomach with some of it escaping through the hole in the middle. It screamed in pain as the fire melted some of its skin. You damn human. I was planning on leaving you, but now I'll devour you too. It yelled in its shrill booming voice while Makoto, who was wearing civilian clothes, stood there with a kunai, a serious expression on her face. Whoa! That woman just spitted fire from her mouth. Rangiku exclaimed in surprise. Sure, she had a brief explanation of what shinobi were capable of, but actually seeing it was something else. Naruto though cursed inwardly as he watched the hollow trudge towards the female Uchiha. Damn it! She can see the hollow, this means she'll be able to see me too. But I'm an adult in this form, surely she wouldn't be able to recognize me. Oji-san said that the memory replacement device in some cases might not work, but I'll have to take care of it and just hope that Gigi would be able to come with an explanation for Makoto-san, he thought as he pulled out Hinata, making Rangiku turn towards him. I'm gonna take it on, Rangiku-san. You stay here, he said with a grim expression before dashing towards Makoto at blundering speeds, making strands of hair of Rangiku flow wildly. Yeah, he's really reckless, she muttered to herself with a childish sigh when suddenly Ayame appeared besides her via Shunpo. Her eyes immediately widened when she saw the retreating form of Naruto. Ah, Ayame-san. You came just at the right time, Matsumoto said cheerfully as she patted the young Shinigami's back, making her eyes twitch. How could you let him just barge in like that? She yelled comically, making Rangiku smile sheepishly. Meanwhile, Makoto stared at the huge strange creature in front of her with her Sharingan. She tightened her grip on the kunai as it dashed towards her at amazing speeds for its size. It was just another ordinary day for her. After Sasuke, who usually ignored her, went to the academy, she began to do her usual chores in between some training when she had felt this strange type on pressure on her, followed by a foul aura. Following it, she was greeted to the huge hollow coming out of a strange bluish black hole just in front of her house. I have to send a signal for Hokage-sama. Even though I can this one, we may get some valuable information about why it just suddenly popped out of nowhere. From what I know, this must be some kind of a summon who can use space-time ninjutsu. But the question is, who could be the user? She thought when suddenly her eyes widened upon noticing a black blur by the corner of her eyes. Clang! Her eyes widened further when the same black figure had suddenly appeared in front of her, his sword now in between the hollow's large teeth as the blonde figure continued to stand there while holding back the creature. Who's this now? She thought, staring at the tall blonde figure who now began to slide back under the force that the hollow was putting in. Stay still, the blonde muttered in a strained voice. Well, this one is much stronger than the previous one, all right, Naruto thought as he gritted his teeth, his feet dragging over the concrete as he pushed with as much force as he could. Who are you? He heard her speak, not turning his head for he didn't want to risk revealing himself. Grunting under the force, his knees began to buckle when the hollow pulled back suddenly. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw its large clawed hand approaching his form at amazing speeds. Barely any time left to dodge, he could only lift Hinata just in time again to catch the strike with the metal of his large blade. Whoosh! Ah! Makoto exclaimed as she caught Naruto's body, which was sailing towards her because of the attack. Both of them skidded backwards at high velocity, dust inducing beneath their feet as she held to him tightly. What power! Naruto, though in awe, his one eye closed in struggle as he pierced the concrete with his Zanpakuto, effectively reducing their speed drastically before they came to a stop just in front of a house. Lifting his head, all he could see was the destroyed concrete because of Hinata with black sliding marks following it to where the large hollow was standing. If I can't win this battle with power, then I'll use my speed, Naruto decided mentally when he felt Makoto behind him groan. He couldn't help but turn back to check on her. She was apparently alright, but her eyes were still closed as she was still clutching to his form tightly. Naruto blushed crimson red upon the close contact, and at that moment couldn't help but notice how beautiful she looked, just like always. Her eyes slowly fluttered open, and the first thing she was greeted to was the sight of concerned, intense blue eyes staring back at her. Are you alright, Makoto-san? He immediately cursed himself for calling her by her name. Makoto's eyes though widened when she heard the stranger say her name, and the tone with which he had spoken, she was familiar with it. Her vision then got cleared enough to notice his features: sun-kissed blonde hair, electric blue eyes, whisker marks, a large kata, wait. Whisker marks. There's only one person with those, she thought, her cheeks a light shade of pink as she gazed at his handsome features, his wild untamed spiky blonde hair only adding to the ferocity of his looks. But this man looks much ol. Her thoughts were interrupted when suddenly her eyes widened. Naruto too stared at the figure behind Makoto who had hit her at the back of her head while the female Uchiha slowly entered the world of unconsciousness. Her limp body now fell in Naruto's arms to reveal a hooded Shinigami standing behind her, her face hidden while the hilt of her Zanpakuto was in midair where Makoto's head was a moment ago. Are you crazy, Naruto-kun? From the familiar feminine voice, he immediately deduced it was Ayame, who exclaimed with some anger seeping into her voice as she gave him a stern gaze. Ayame-chan wa. First, you have nothing to cover your face, and secondly, you are staring at her up so close like you were just ready to kiss her. Even though you are an adult in your Shinigami form, your whisker marks are a dead giveaway of your identity. She scolded him when suddenly they were interrupted by an explosion. Naruto turned his head back to see the hollow clutching his face, which was covered in black smoke with Rangiku standing in front of it, her hand extended towards the hollow from which smoke was emanating too. Never mind. First I'll just take care of this hollow, she spoke with a sigh before suddenly vanishing, blurring out of his vision, making his eyes go wide. How did she just vanished? He thought in astonishment. Placing his Zanpakuto back in its sheath, he picked up an unconscious Makoto bridal style before turning around to see the battle. Thanks for holding it, Rangiku-san. I had to make sure that she didn't see anything more, Ayame said, pulling her hood back after appearing beside Matsumoto, who smiled at her in return. Ah, no problem, Ayame-san. Besides, it was my fault for letting Naruto run in like that, she said with a grin, making Ayame nod back at her with a smile before she turned towards the hollow, some of whose mask was damaged as it growled demonically at them. So, 2 Shinigami have come to be my food today. I'm sure you'll taste much better than ordinary humans' other insignificant hollows. But who I'm really interested in is that Shinigami over there, it spoke while pointing towards Naruto with its clawed hand, its body pale brown in color except its white mask while a large tail waved behind the creature. Ayame and Rangiku's eyes widened while the whiskered blonde just narrowed his eyes. So these hollows are targeting me, and coming here because of me, he thought, his lips curling down into a frown with Ayame and Rangiku sharing the same thought processes. Enough of this, Ayame muttered with a frown as she lifted her hand. Hado no Gojushi. Hien. Way of Destruction 54. Nullific Flames. Matsumoto's eyes widened to saucers upon hearing her when suddenly Ayame fired a powerful blast of purple spiritual energy from her right palm, lighting the area in a purple glow while gusts of wind dashed around them. It reached the stunned hollow in a matter of milliseconds. Boom! A large ear-deafening explosion took place, making everyone there shield their eyes, covering the area in smoke while Naruto had an expression of amazement on his face. Why you can use Aishohaki, incantation abandonment. Rangiku stuttered in shock. This was a skill only skilled practitioners of Kido possessed in Seraite. And she had used such a level of destructive spell effectively, and what was more shocking was that the power in her attack was still astounding. Abandoning incantation is said to drastically reduce the strength of a Kido spell. She really is something else. With the age of around only 18 human years, she's a genius to achieve this feat so soon, she thought with a stunned expression on her face. Well, I'm naturally good with Kido you see and can control my Raryoku really well, Ayame spoke with an embarrassed smile. Ayame-chan. She turned her head to see Naruto skid to a halt just beside her, Makoto softly tucked in his arms while he held an expression of excitement on his face. That was so cool, Ayame-chan. How did you do that? Can you please teach me? He asked with his eyes literally shining like the blazing sun, while Ayame's cheeks flushed upon hearing him compliment her. Well, of course, Naruto-kun, she said with a cute smile, making him grin foxily as he tightened his hold on Makoto. Not being able to contain his joy, he spoke. I would have hugged you if it were not for Makoto-san. But this should do it. He exclaimed cheerfully before leaning in, making Ayame's eyes widen as his lips made contact with her left cheek. She stood there frozen for a few seconds before her face erupted into a furious blush. He kissed me, she thought, her heart pounding against her chest as a smile slowly crept onto her lips. She touched her cheek with her hand, the blush still not going away. Rangiku though giggled at her face, her cheeks were themselves pink as she thought of her receiving the same treatment. You're the greatest, Ayame-chan. He exclaimed loudly, making her squirm in her position, her gaze lowered while he grinned obliviously. But I want a kiss too, Naruto-kun. Matsumoto said childishly, her lower lip swelling cutely as she pouted at him. Naruto's face flushed crimson red as he stumbled back a bit. Don't mess with me, lady. He half stuttered, half yelled, feeling this urge to not just kiss her on the cheeks, but claim her lips. And he was horrified of this. Her lips look what's happening to me? He thought while feeling this another urge to bang his head on a wall repeatedly. Amazing. Such a level of Shinigami. Truly this new world is interesting. Their eyes widened upon hearing that voice, the smoke now clearing to show its damaged form. Most of its body was tarred black due to the explosion, its mask somehow still unharmed. But what was just in front of him, in between his clawed hands, was what made Ayame and Rangiku lose their breath. Impossible. That's Ayame's thoughts themselves trailed in shock. That's a Kumon. Air Gate, Rangiku exclaimed in immense surprise as she watched the hollow's clawed hands ripping open something black in midair. Ayame though frowned as the black rip slowly decreased in size until it was nothing but air itself. So he must have used the Kumon to my attack, but it seems he was not able to react in time, she thought while tightening her grip around her Zanpakuto's hilt. Was careless. I should have known that this world would possess much stronger opponents. They did warned us after all, it said, clearly in pain and exhausted due to the wounds inflicted by the explosion as the black-bluish garganta slowly opened behind him, making Ayame's eyes widen. Is another one coming? She thought before readying herself. See, consider yourself lucky this time, Shinigami. Why you got me by surprise this time, it said as Ayame waited for something to happen while the garganta continued to expand. US Shinigami, why you're special, it said while pointing towards Naruto, whose eyes widened while Ayame too lifted her eyebrows in shock. Did he sense it? Does he know of it? She thought while glancing nervously towards the whiskered blonde. What do you mean? Naruto asked, his eyes indicating maturity beyond his years as he stared at the hollow right into its red glowing eyes. In time, you'll see. But remember, next time I'll be much stronger and prepared. NYU would be my target Shinigami. Hope you're stronger too. All of their eyes widened upon hearing it direct its declaration towards Naruto, who though sensed this strange feeling overcoming him, the challenge, the lust of a battle, the feeling of never backing down. Remember it as Shinigami, my name is Vasio Oscuro, it said, its red glowing stare never leaving Naruto's cold blue eyes, who hardened his gaze. Ayame though gritted her teeth, she couldn't allow this hollow to leave. If he could use and control the Kumon like that, then surely he would pose a big threat in the future. Not to mention that his eyes were set on Naruto now for some reason. Clearly this hollow had surpassed all the limits of a normal mindless hollow, who only crazed for high Raryoku souls. This one had a mind, lust for battle, and would become much stronger if it was left as it is, not that she knew the limits of its strength even now. I've had it, she exclaimed before using Shunpo to dash towards him, her Zanpakuto reared back as her eyes grew cold. Naruto though could practically feel Oscuro grinning at them. Heads up Shinigami, it exclaimed when Ayame and Rangiku's eyes widened upon sensing something powerful above them. Boom! Ayame suddenly stopped when a bright pillar of square yellow light fell on them, specifically on Vasio Oscuro. She skidded to a stop, having been blown away by the impact along with others. Shit! She cursed, her eyes narrowed as she gazed towards the sky. Naruto, seeing Ayame and Rangiku staring at something in the sky, looked upwards. Holy shit! He cursed loudly. His eyes widened to the maximum as he stared at a huge black rip in the sky, protruding out of which was a giant black creature, its mask white while its nose was pointed and lengthy. What is that thing? He exclaimed, his heart beating mile a minute as he stared at the intimidating sight, the yellow pillar of light flashing out of the black rip which now was covering the hollow in front of them as a form of square protective cover. Be prepared, and next time, Shinigami, Oscuro spoke as his body began to lift in the pillar towards the sky while Naruto turned his head to stare at him with a serious expression. I can't let it escape. Have to use Shikai now. Ayame thought as she held her Zanpakuto horizontally, tilting it downwards a bit before she lightly slid her 2 fingers over its flat metal. Zofuk. It wouldn't work, Ayame. She was interrupted upon feeling a hand on her shoulder, turning back to see Tuki staring towards the sky with a frown on his face. It's a negation counter membrane. This is impenetrable, even the most powerful of my attacks wouldn't put a dent on it. It practically isolates their target from the current dimension. It's no use now, he said while Ayame sighed, closing her eyes in frustration as she took deep breaths to calm herself. Naruto though, who had been staring at the hollow which was slowly ascending towards the black rip, spoke loudly. I'll be prepared, Vasio Oscuro, and remember my name, the one to defeat you will be, Shinigami, Uzumaki Naruto, he loudly verbalized, the blonde bangs covering his forehead as he gave the creature his most serious look. It seemed to grin maniacally before being engulfed by the large Kumon which began to decrease in size quickly. Rangiku though, to say the least was flabbergasted. Naruto, the 12-year-old man, was open accepting the challenge of a hollow, and Kami knows how strong it could be. And considering the way he had manipulated a Kumon to its advantage so skillfully, she somehow doubted Naruto's decision. But, seeing those eyes, that expression, he really does want this. Does this come from the need to be acknowledged, to prove himself to us, or is it this the battle instinct that he showed last night? It seems, he really does enjoy fighting, but I can't help but admire his confidence, his determination, his stubbornness, she thought while staring at him as he continued to gaze at the spot where the Kumon had been moments ago. Slowly her lips curled into a smirk. Well damn, we have to train him seriously now I guess. He can't survive alone on just his instincts after all. I'll be prepared, Vasio Oscuro. And remember my name, the one to defeat you will be, Shinigami, Uzumaki Naruto, he loudly verbalized, the blonde bangs covering his forehead as he gave the creature his most serious look. It seemed to grin maniacally before being engulfed by the large Kumon which began to decrease in size quickly. Rangiku though, to say the least was flabbergasted. Naruto, the 12-year-old man, was open accepting the challenge of a hollow, and Kami knows how strong it could be. And considering the way he had manipulated a Kumon to its advantage so skillfully, she somehow doubted Naruto's decision. But, seeing those eyes, that expression, he really does want this. Does this come from the need to be acknowledged, to prove himself to us, or is it this the battle instinct that he showed last night? It seems, he really does enjoy fighting, but I can't help but admire his confidence, his determination, his stubbornness, she thought while staring at him as he continued to gaze at the spot where the Kumon had been moments ago. Slowly her lips curled into a smirk. Well damn, we have to train him seriously now I guess. He can't survive alone on just his instincts after all. Meanwhile, Tsuki was staring at Naruto curiously, observing the blonde who was gazing up at the sky while Ayame was lost in her own thoughts as to how to cope up with this new problem. So, Vasio Oscuro, time for me to prove myself. I'll prove to everyone that I'm not a dead last, a loser, and I'm definitely passing the graduation exams this time. Most of all, I wouldn't let any hollow harm those precious to me, or my village. He mentally nodded to himself, this time things would be different. Oi Naruto. Turning his head, he noticed Tsuki standing beside Ayame. He started walking towards them, his lips curling down when he noticed Ayame staring at him with a frown on her face. Oji-san, I think we should send Makoto-san to the hospital, he said while gazing at the Uchiha matriarch in his arms, strangely enjoying the warmth she was emanating. No need to do that Naruto-kun, I'll take it from here. They turned their heads to see Hiruzen land in front of them in his battle gear. Gigi, what are you doing here? The whiskered blonde asked in surprise. He thought the Hokage would be busy, taking care of the situation. I'm just a shadow clone Naruto-kun, the real one is coming with a squad of Anbu and several other Junins. The hollow this time caused quite a ruckus. You guys should hurry and leave Makoto-san here to me. I'll handle the rest, he spoke a bit urgently as Naruto nodded before quickly giving an unconscious Makoto to him. Please be safe Makoto-san, he thought when he felt himself his forearm being grabbed. Turning back, he saw Tsuki holding him while Ayame was holding Rangiku's wrist before the group vanished in a shunpo. Time skip. Konoha. Ichiraku's apartment. 5 minutes later. Naruto, are you insane? He looked at Ayame's face in confusion as she spoke through gritted teeth. Currently, they were in the drawing room with Naruto back in his body while Shiroi, Tsuki and Rangiku were sitting on couches. What do you mean Ayame-chan? He asked as her frown deepened while Tsuki too held a serious expression on his face. Why were you thinking on accepting that Hollow's challenge? You do know that it has just been a day since you became a Shinigami, right? She hissed with narrowed eyes. Clearly she was unhappy about this whole thing. What are you trying to say? He asked with seriousness, seated on the opposite side of her. What I'm trying to say, Naruto, is that you forget about fighting that Hollow, she said, making his eyes widen. Why would you say that? He asked heatedly, making her glare back at him. Because it's for your own good. That Hollow is very strong. I could sense its Raryoku reserves and it was clearly holding back on us. We had the element of surprise and thus were able to catch it off guard. I wouldn't back down, he replied instantaneously in a monotone voice as he bore his stare into her brown orbs. Stopping acting like a child, Naruto, Ayame loudly exclaimed, standing suddenly as she glared at him while Shiroi looked at the two with concern. Rangiku too kept quiet but was surprised with Ayame's outburst. Ayame, calm down, Tsuki said in a grim voice as he kept staring at the wall in front of him when she snapped. "San, how can you expect me to calm down? You yourself know how strong that hollow can become. It's already way above other normal hollows and I can tell it's a Manos minus, it's no longer an ordinary hollow. You yourself saw the Jillian, lowest great hollow, rescue it through the negation. It only means one thing, that Vasio Oscuro is a special one, or else that Jillian wouldn't have come to aid him. And what's stopping us from predicting that the next time he shows himself, he's an Ijuka's intermediate great hollow, class Manos. Only captain level ones are capable of facing those," her voice getting louder at the end as the full effect of what could be the consequences settled on them. "And you, Naruto-kun?" She turned her head, his eyes widening as he saw the concern in her deep brown orbs. "You have been a Shinigami for one day only. I really don't like saying this, but you can't handle that Zanpakuto properly. Besides, your Shinigami powers are only temporary. Even if you do manage to get proficient in the art of Zanjutsu, still that Zanpakuto would return to Rangiku-san eventually. What will you do then?" She asked loudly at the end while Naruto stared at the floor, his posture unmoving as Matsumoto too waited for his answer. She too knew that it was hopeless for Naruto to face that hollow, he just didn't have enough time to train himself as a Shinigami. Nor could he use Shikai or Bankai, and with that being said he couldn't hope to face Vasio Oscuro at a later time, when most probably he would be much stronger. "So you mean to say," Naruto began as he broke the silence before continuing, "that I should just concentrate on my ninja career? That's the reason you guys are training me for the month, right? So that I can form stable chakra. And for that you guys are training me in controlling my Raryoku. You're training me in Kenjutsu, or Zanjutsu as you call it, to hone my reflexes and sharpen my skills in Taijutsu too, right? And me temporarily working as a Shinigami would gain me experience which would give me an edge when my shinobi career begins, isn't that right, Oji-san?" Ayame, Matsumoto and Shiroi had their eyes widened in shock as they stared at the 12-year genius. He had deduced all that in one day. Naruto. Rangiku's thoughts trailed as she gazed at the boy in immense surprise, who right now was staring at Tsuki with a dead serious expression on his face. "Yes," was the only word the old chef mumbled as he looked to be deep in thought. Ayame though walked towards him before bending down to his level, putting her hands on his shoulders as she gazed softly at him. "We only want what's best for you, Naruto-kun," she spoke softly, offering him a loving smile as he stared at her. Standing up slowly, he walked over to a window, gazing at the children who were playing a game of tag. His eyes held sadness, pain as he stared at them, a look of determination overcoming those emotions in his oceanic blue eyes. "Naruto-kun," Shiroi mumbled sadly as she had watched his reflection on the window, not liking those haunted eyes. If I'll lose my Shinigami powers, then so be it, he sighed before turning back to them, a blazing smirk on his face that sent chills down Rangiku, Shiroi and Ayame's spine. Then I'll simply face Oscuro as a shinobi. I have a high amount of Raryoku, I'll use that to my advantage and will learn Kido. I'll become the first being to simultaneously use ninjutsu and Kido. If I can't slice it with a Zanpakuto, then I'll just beat it to a bloody pulp with my own fists. But I wouldn't let it harm anyone in my village. If I want to be the Hokage, I'll have to protect my village, be it by being a shinobi or a shinigami, I don't care. These spiritual energy reserves of mine are both a curse as well as a gift. So don't you try pulling me out of this, cause I'm as stuck in my decision as a stick up a Hyuga's. He spoke loudly at the end with narrowed eyes. Dot dot dot. Dot dot dot. Pin drop silence followed his little speech as everyone except Chuki gazed at him with WTF expressions on their faces, making him blush a bit in embarrassment as he found his eyebrows twitching. And just forget about using Kikanshinki or that Kaiktu, whatever that is, on me. 'Cause I ain't forgetting anything. He finished with a HMFF, as they continued to stare at him with an expression of total impossibility. What will you do if we refuse to train you, Naruto? All eyes turned to Chuki, shock clearly evident in them. "San, how can you silence Ayame?" he exclaimed loudly as he continued to stare into Naruto's wide eyes. "How can you do this, Chuki-san?" Rangiku exclaimed with a frown as she glared at him. "I can and I will. Do remember that I'm the substitute Shinigami of Konoha, Rangiku-san." Naruto clearly isn't thinking with his head right now. Blind heroics will only get him. He spoke calmly while staring at the whiskered blonde whose eyes were narrowed at him. Rangiku's frown deepened at this as she turned to gaze at Naruto, her heart clenching as she noticed the brief flash of pain cross his eyes before they were clouded by anger. "Fine then. It wouldn't be the first time anyway. But do remember this, Oji-san, I still wouldn't chicken out of this. I will gain control of my Raryoku, and if Oscuro ever threatens Konoha, I wouldn't just stand like an idiot. And besides, now that I do know how Raryoku feels, I can manipulate it in my human form too." He spoke with fiercely when everybody's eyebrows except Chuki's lift in surprise. "Oh, you can? Why not show us this glimpse of your Raryoku as you stand here in your body?" he asked with a hidden smirk behind his folded hands. "I'm not an idiot, old man," Naruto muttered with a frown as he closed his eyes while Ayame, Shiroi and Matsumoto watched him intently. Chuki's smirk widened when he felt the familiar abrupt increase in Naruto's Ryutsu, while the other three's eyes widened upon noticing minute sparks of electricity crackle around his body. Shiroi immediately found herself gasping for air when Ayame moved in front of her and increased her own Ryutsu, making her take a deep breath in relief. "Is that lightning?" both Rangiku and Ayame thought in surprise as they saw the purple-bluish glow reflecting off his form due to the current sparks. "See, I can increase my spiritual pressure at will," he said with a smirk, gradually decreasing the output when a look of confusion replaced that upon noticing the wide-eyed expressions of Rangiku, Shiroi and Ayame. "What? Naruto, is that lightning?" Matsumoto stuttered as she pointed her index finger at him. He looked down as a look of realization dawned on his face. "Oh, this has happened to me in the past too," he spoke, making Chuki's eyes widen. "What do you mean it has happened before?" "Well, I don't know how to explain, but whenever I got super angry or something, this lightning would come out. And that night of the Uchiha massacre, you wouldn't believe how much lightning had come of my body to hit Itachi. That was the main reason I was able to save Makoto-san," he said, his hand going over his chest as if he was remembering something while Chuki just sighed. Alright, relax everyone, I was just kidding. Of course I'm gonna train Naruto. He spoke with a chuckle, making Ayame and Shiroi sigh in relief. Of course I knew you were acting, Tsuki-san. Did you really think you could fool me? Rangiku spoke cheerfully as she nodded to herself. You were the one who had the most animated response, Rangiku-san. Naruto deadpanned, making her blush in embarrassment as others chuckled at the two. That was so mean, Naruto-kun. I was only defending you, she said childishly, giving him a cute pout, making him blush a bit. Yeah, come to think of it, she has been doing nothing but encouraging me since yesterday, he thought before giving her his rare true smile. Thanks, Rangiku-san, he muttered in a low tone while Matsumoto was caught off guard as she found herself unable to avert her gaze from him, a blush dusting her cheeks. That smile. Her heart strangely skipped a bit at that when she finally averted her gaze. Naruto though was oblivious to her thoughts as he turned to Tsuki while Ayame looked at the exchange with a light frown. Does Naruto-kun like her? She thought, biting her lower lip. Oji-san, I'm sure you're up to something. I know you have some plan, so spill it. Naruto said while pointing at the old chef. Well, it's simple, Naruto. You see, besides the powers Rangiku-san gave to you, you have your own Shinigami powers. His eyes widened upon hearing that. Of all the things, he definitely hadn't expected Tsuki to say that. I have my own powers? He asked hesitantly, not sure of what the old man was saying. Yeah, the fact that your Ryutsu produces lightning element is definitely not one of my abilities. It comes from your own soul, Matsumoto spoke to him, suddenly serious, making him nod enthusiastically. So I can have my own Zanpakuto then? He said hopefully, making them nod. Yeah, he pumped his fist in the air, an ecstatic expression on his face. I'm awesome. I'm so gonna rub Oscuro's face in the mud. Tsuki sighed while the three females giggled at his antics. Kid, you're jumping the gun, it's not that simple. First we'll have to wait for Rangiku-san's powers to return to her and only then we can explore your own powers, he verbalized, making Naruto nod. In the meantime, during the month, we're gonna train you into the ground. And it will be like this. Ayame will teach you Zanjutsu and Kido while Rangiku-san will mainly aid you in what shinobi call taijutsu. Also, he stopped abruptly when a black butterfly flew in through the window to land on his finger. That's a Jigokucho, the blonde lieutenant thought in surprise. Rangiku-san, Hokage Dono is calling for you. It seems he wants to instate you as a shinobi of the leaf, he spoke, making Naruto and Matsumoto look at him in surprise. Me? Her? They both exclaimed, making Tsuki nod before he answered. Since you'll be staying here for quite some time, Rangiku-san, it would be better if you become a shinobi. Besides, the special Gigai I gave you allows you to move at amazing speeds, so you'll be quite formidable in taijutsu. Besides, you can use Kido and state it as another branch of ninjutsu, so most probably you'll become a Junin. I know the action and thrill of being a shinobi would be inviting to say the least. Ooh, I really do want to try this shinobi thing, she spoke before clasping her hands in excitement. Naruto, show the way. Tsuki exclaimed with a devious grin. What? Why me? He whined when he found Rangiku's arm slung over his shoulder. Oh come on, Naruto-kun. Can't you show this poor lady where to go? She asked sensually, batting her eyelashes cutely, making him blush furiously. Her noticeable bust was pressed against his arm while he could see her cleavage. Which straight guy could resist this? Why me? He thought while inwardly crying anime tears. Fine then, he suddenly exclaimed with a frown as he started walking towards the door, pulling himself out of her grip while she followed him with a bright smile on her face. Those two are really something, Tsuki muttered to himself with a sigh while Ayame had a saddened expression on her face as she had her own set of thoughts lingering in her troubled mind. Konoha. Outside Ichiraku's apartment. What took you so long? Naruto exclaimed with an angry expression, not that he was actually. But he couldn't help but feel strangely hot under the collar whenever she was, close to him. Why are you always angry with me? She asked while faking a sad expression on her face. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw her sad. Ah, but I'm not angry with you. He exclaimed frantically, waving his arms in defense. You're lying, she exclaimed with a down look on her face. I don't like that look on her beautiful face. Wait, beautiful, he thought in surprise, outwardly shaking his head to get rid of confusing thoughts. No, I'm not lying, this time he said calmly while Matsumoto could notice passerbys giving him cold looks while some neighbor shopkeepers were directly glaring at him, making her frown. On the other hand, she was getting looks of confusion along with lecherous stares. Yeah, this was something she was used to. It's just. He started making her look at him before he continued, so much has happened since yesterday, and I'm still coming to terms with this. It's not like things were easy for me before, you know. I just want some time. She smiled softly at him before bending down while he gazed at his feet. I understand, Naruto. It must be tough for you. He snapped his head up upon noticing the complete change in her tone. It was sweet, melodic, comfortable to his ears and troubled mind. His heart almost came to a stop upon seeing her beautiful face up so close while she put her hands on his shoulders, her blue eyes soft as she smiled at him sweetly. And I admire your confidence, determination, and the way you have handled things so far. I believe that you can do it. So cheer up, she exclaimed cheerfully, grinning at him as she squeezed his shoulders while people around them in the streets were giving her shocked looks. What was she doing interacting with him? Didn't she know? They began to murmur amongst each other while Matsumoto and Naruto remained oblivious to the surroundings around them. Naruto, however, was touched. Deeply touched that she believed in him, that she was comforting him. She admired him. She was smiling at him. And so he couldn't help but grin foxily at her while her cheeks flushed as she gazed at his features. Thanks, Rangiku-chan, he exclaimed with his heart leaping with joy while she blushed furiously, and probably for the first time in her life. He was totally alright, and ready to fight. Rangiku-chan, she thought in surprise before slowly a warm smile crept up her face. And strangely, she was feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. Yosh, let's go, she chirped before standing up. Just as they were about to jump, Rangiku felt a hand on her shoulder and she immediately knew what was going on. Hey miss, why are you talking with this thing? Don't you know him? She turned around to notice a man, having a lecherous grin on his face while behind him were several others. All of their eyes glued to her cleavage, making her sigh. Probably a gang or something, she thought before giving the man an innocent smile, making him grin wider as he squeezed her shoulder. Naruto though was getting angry. What was their problem anyway? First they hate him for no apparent reason, and then they prevent anyone else from talking to him. And seeing that perverted grin on that man's face, he knew they were up to no good. Oh, but I find him very cute, kind, funny, and sweet young man. I don't see what's wrong with him, she said, smiling at them innocently while Naruto's cheeks turned into a bright shade of red. The man in front of her though scowled, still haven't left her shoulder while the others behind him growled. They started to move towards Naruto when the one holding Rangiku signaled them to stop, so apparently he was the leader. Hey, what are you doing? The whiskered blonde said in a hushed voice as he nudged her in the ribs lightly. You said something, you trash. The leader growled as he turned his head towards Naruto while Matsumoto gently pried his hand away from her shoulder, still smiling at him. Naruto though only narrowed his cold eyes. it would be a cold day in hell before he would be scared of some perverted idiots. You shouldn't associate yourself with such demons, miss. You should join us, we could give you a much better company, he verbalized with a suggestive smile while Rangiku could feel herself boiling with anger, still a forced smile on her face. I'm not a demon, Naruto growled as he glared at them while clenching his fists when he felt Matsumoto's hand on his shoulder making him look at her in confusion. Thanks for the offer, but I'll pass. Besides, Naruto-kun is much better in bed than any of you will ever be. She again spoke cheerfully. Dot dot dot. Dot dot dot. Dot dot dot. Jaws dropped. Eyes bulged. Those who had heard her held comical stunned expressions on their faces. A mysterious gust swept by as Naruto stared at her open-mouthed, his face a classical tomato shade of red. Please, oh Kami, please say that she didn't just say what I think I heard her say, the blonde thought when he heard the leader suddenly erupt into full-blown laughter. Ahahahahaha. Nice one. Really? Ahahahaha. You must be joking. Him. Come on. He's just an idiot who see. Wham. Dot dot dot. Thud. Everybody stared in yet another moment of shock. That pretty woman had just delivered a jaw-breaking uppercut to the apparent leader, and he had went flying with his broken teeth flying in different directions, making everyone else cringe. Naruto though stared at the unconscious man in shock, his jaw was probably dislocated now. Does anyone else has something to say? Matsumoto asked with a pissed-off expression on her face as she leaked out her ryutsu. The rest of the gang and other people cowered under the pressure they were feeling as they just shook their heads. Good, she said cheerfully, her demeanor taking a 180 turn before she turned to Naruto. Let's go, Naruto-kun, she spoke with a smile before taking the shocked blonde's hand. Giving one last glare to the cowering thugs behind her, they jumped towards the roof. Konoha. Rooftops. You didn't have to do that, you know, he spoke as they began to jump through the rooftops towards the Hokage's tower. Yeah, right, and let them insult you. She spoke while rolling her eyes as his lips curled up in a light smile. But why do you care? It's been only a day since we've met after all, he muttered as the cool breeze rubbed their forms. Not all people all like those villagers, Naruto-kun. There are those who care for you, always remember that, she uttered with a smile while he nodded. Arigato Rangiku-chan. I'm really glad I met you, he verbalized with a warm smile while she couldn't help but blush at hearing him call her with such closeness. Here we are. Both of them landed in front of the tower as he pointed her towards the entrance. She gazed at the building when he spoke. All right, you know where's my apartment, right? I have somewhere to go, so see you later, Rangiku-chan. He said with a mock salute, a grin on his face which soon vanished when he noticed her eyes shining with mischief. He began to take several steps backward, a forced smile on his face while she smirked at him. I think you deserve a reward, Naruto-kun, she spoke seductively, swaying her hips deliberately as she stalked him like a prey. Gotta run, he exclaimed with a blush before turning around, to find her. There, she trailed after grabbing his shoulders before bending down to kiss him on the cheeks. Naruto's whole world froze as he stood there, touching his cheeks as warmness flushed his entire system. She giggled at his awestruck expression before ruffling his blonde locks affectionately. See you later, Naruto-kun, Rangiku waved in front of his face as she started to walk towards the entrance while slowly a smile grazed Naruto's face. Later, Rangiku-chan, he whispered softly as he stared at her retreating form. She's definitely different than anyone I've ever seen. In just one day, I feel so close to her, it's like we've known each other for a long time. I can't help but feel we're so alike. She's what they call an adult, so strong and a vice captain of Soul Society, yet she still remains so jovial, carefree and sometimes acts just like me, he pondered while the smile just refused to leave his face. Yesterday, he was irritated by her snide remarks, now he seemed to enjoy her company. Unknown to him though, Matsumoto too was having similar thoughts. Now let's see. A finger under his chin as he adopted a concentrated expression on his face. Oh right. I should check up on Makoto-san, he exclaimed before taking off towards the hospital. Konoha's General Hospital. 15 minutes later. After transforming himself into a random civilian, Naruto had asked the receptionist of the room in which Makoto was admitted earlier that day. Thank Kami that I can at least do the transformation technique, he thought with a sigh as he walked through the corridors, searching for her room. Let's see, it should be around the next corner, he muttered to himself, hanged into a middle-aged man as he turned around the corner to stop suddenly. Is that Sasuke Tem? He thought, seeing the Uchiha enter the ward where Makoto was currently in. Reaching the door, he stood outside while he could hear their voices due to his sharpened senses. What happened, Ka-san? He was Sasuke alright. Naruto could define that irritating monotone voice anywhere. What was wrong with that idiot? The least he could do was show some emotion, some concern for his mother. I'm fine, Sasuke-kun. It was just a small attack, he smiled upon hearing that voice. That was Makoto-san, that sweet, melodic and cheerful voice. If it was just a small attack, how come you're here in the hospital? You're a Junin while they say that you were found unconscious by Hokage-sama, Naruto heard Sasuke say in a cold voice, making him clench his fists in anger at his stuck-up behavior. Being a Junin doesn't mean that you can take on anybody, Sasuke-kun, she replied calmly while Naruto could sense a tinge of sadness in her voice. Stop making excuses, Ka-san. You're weak, just like Itachi said. You yourself said that it was a small attack, probably a thug or a thief, and yet you are here in the hospital. Admit it, Ka-san, you're weak. Just forget it. I'm going to train. It seems you only want to spend your remaining life crying over that night instead of helping me ironing that traitor. Naruto could feel himself losing it. He could feel his Ryutsu leaking out if the uncomfortable faces of the other people around him was any indication. That bastard, he thought with gritted teeth as he stood on the right side of the door, his back on the wall when the door opened. He felt this primal urge to just this nuisance of a human being once and for all as Sasuke walked in the opposite direction with a scowl on his face. Alright, Naruto, just calm down. Take deep breaths. Yeah, just like that, he calmed himself, taking deep breaths to calm himself before he nodded. Putting on a smile, he pushed himself off the wall before entering the room through the open door. The sight that greeted him immediately wiped the fake smile off his face. There she was, her palms on her face as she quietly sobbed to herself. His heart constricted painfully as he noticed tears streaming down her chin. Ever since that night, when Naruto had taken the hit meant for her, saving her in the process, obviously, things had went downhill for the two Uchihas. Sasuke had gone cold and reserved, just like Itachi, while Makoto herself tried to pull herself out of those painful memories. All her relatives, her husband, murdered in one night had put a deep scar on her heart. Sasuke was the only one left to her, and seeing the way he just behaved must be painful for the Uchiha matriarch. Not so surprisingly, Naruto and her had created a deep bond between themselves. Seeing that Sasuke was being a jerk, he had taken matter into his hands and often went to meet her in secret, with that explaining his usual sudden disappearances from the academy. They both enjoyed each other's kamapanis, laughing in each other's presence. Naruto didn't know what kind of bond or relationship he shared with her, if it was a mother-son one or just friendship. But he sure as hell wasn't going to abandon her in these times of turmoil. She was very precious to him and often comforted him whenever he was feeling down. Turning back, he quietly closed the door, locking it before releasing the hinge as he sighed to himself. Makoto-san, he muttered in a low tone when she snapped her head up. Her eyes widened while her tears went flying. Who? She exclaimed while wiping her eyes, clearing her blurry vision due to the tears. Naruto-kun. She spoke in surprise while frantically wiping her remaining tears as the blonde walked towards her. When did you? She trailed when he had suddenly hugged her, surprising her as he had his arms around her neck. It's all right, Makoto-san. I know what you're going through, he whispered softly in her ear when more tears brimmed at the corner of her eyes. He began to gently rub her back as she burst into sobs, clutching onto his form tightly. Naruto could feel the warm liquid staining his jumpsuit as she cried on his shoulders, moisture itself gathered in his cerulean blue eyes as he tightened his hold on her. No one was there to comfort me when I needed it, but I wouldn't let you go through the same, Makoto-san. I know how it feels, he pondered as she continued to sob, her cries of anguish and emotional torment being muffled by the fabric. After several minutes, she calmed down slowly as both of them were lost in their own thoughts, reveling in each other's warmth. Are you okay, Makoto-san? He asked a bit hesitantly, feeling that the hug was getting longer than it should be. Hi, Naruto-kun, she mumbled as he slowly leaned back, both of them feeling odd at the loss of comforting warmth. I'm feeling much better now, Naruto-kun, she spoke with a heart-melting smile, making Naruto blush a bit as he grinned back. So, how are you, Makoto-san? He asked when her smile brightened at his question while he couldn't help but frown mentally. And that jerk should have asked her this rather than calling her weak. I'm fine, thank you, Naruto-kun, she smiled sweetly at him. Makoto still couldn't believe how mature the boy, young man in front of her was. So many times he had comforted her, aided her, he was such a nice soul. Whenever talking to him, she felt as if her equal adult was in front of her. He was so much opposite of Sasuke, so bright, so kind, considerate of others' feelings. And cute too. I wonder how he would look when he grows old, she thought with a light blush, when suddenly her eyes widened as a flashback invaded her mind. That face. She thought in alarm upon remembering that face. Blonde hair, those electric blue eyes, whisker marks, no way. Naruto-kun, the one who saved me, was it you? She stuttered with wide eyes when Naruto somewhat stiffened at her question. No, I was in the academy, remember? He said while laughing nervously, rubbing the back of his head while she narrowed her eyes. I think he's hiding something. And surely I wasn't seeing things, even if Hokage-sama told me. My Sharingan couldn't just fool me like that. Who else has whisker marks? And with the combination of blonde hair and blue eyes. She mused when Naruto decided to change the subject. Makoto-san, when will you get out of here? I don't want to come here every day to meet you, he said with his nose crinkled up. Oh, those awful smell of medicines. She just giggled at his face. You couldn't help but adore this boy. I'll be released today, Naruto-kun, she spoke gently, making him sigh in relief. Hey, guess what? I've found a way to solve my chakra problem. He exclaimed with glee while her eyes shined with excitement. Really? How did you do that? Her eyes holding curiosity and mirth when the blonde smirked as he motioned her to come closer. It's a secret, he whispered in her ear with a grin, making her pout as he started laughing at her. From a third person's view, really it looked like as if the two were best friends. Sometimes Naruto would climb to her level and act maturely, while sometimes she would stoop to his level and act childishly. Damn you, old man. I'll get you for this someday. A raspy voice broke the silence in the empty apartment as Naruto tiredly opened the front door with a click. Dragging his feet to the living room, he flipped off his shinobi sandals carelessly before switching the lights on. His eyelids were heavy while his shoulders were slumped down when a growl echoed throughout the apartment, making him sigh. "I'm hungry, damn you, Ayame-chan," he muttered while clutching his stomach before walking towards the kitchen as he started preparing instant ramen, all the while mumbling random curses to the Ichiraku family. "I shouldn't have gone there in the first place. It was my first day, at least they could have gone easy on me, my whole body hurts," he groaned as he held his lower back. Earlier, after meeting Makoto in the hospital, Naruto had gone back to the Ichirakus to have a bowl of ramen when they had dragged him to the underground training ground. He shuddered upon remembering that gleam in the old man's eyes when he had declared that his official training had begun. Oh, the horror! The blonde mentally whined as he waited for the ramen to get boiled, his least favorite part. They had begun with the simple training methods: push-ups, crutches, running laps around the area's perimeter. Considering his stamina, it would have been easier for the whiskered blonde, but his Ayame-chan, oh so sweet Ayame-chan. She had oh so gently wrapped those weight belts around his wrists and legs. They were basic training equipment, mind you, but still really heavy, and add to the fact that Tyuki had pushed him to the point where he could practically hear his muscles crying in agony, all the while cursing him, "You shithead." After an almost inaudible vow of "itadakimasu," he began to wolf down his ramen while thinking of ways to get back at the tortoise duo. "Ah, nothing better than a stomach full of ramen," he exclaimed while patting his stomach when suddenly his door was knocked quite roughly, startling him. He was immediately on guard now. "Damn it, I'm extremely exhausted now, I don't think I can handle any drunk idiot. Should I just leave?" he thought while slowly taking backward steps towards the window behind him when again the door was knocked harshly. "Naruto, open the door. It's cold." A drunk female voice pierced the silence, making Naruto's eyes widened. "Rangiku-san," he thought before hurriedly scurrying towards the door, the kunai still in his hands just in case it was some sort of trick. Opening the door cautiously, he ignored the cold breeze for the sight in front of him. "Whoa!" she exclaimed as Naruto watched her hand pass through thin air, where the door was supposed to be. His eyes widened as she began to fall towards him, being unbalanced because of her, well, clearly she was drunk. "Rang MPHH. His voice became muffled due to thud, her falling on him. He. "Sorry Naruto-kun," she spoke while giggling, unaware of the blonde's condition beneath her. Slowly lifting herself up, she heard a vocal sharp intake of breath. Gazing down, she noticed Naruto panting, his face flushed as he stared at her with widened eyes. "Oh, I'm sorry, why, did my suffocate you?" She spoke sluggishly with a teary-eyed pout, making his heart skip a beat. Her blonde locks were sprawled on his face while he stared into her hazy sky-blue eyes. "And no, I'm fine," he spoke after averting his gaze when she began to caress his whiskered cheeks, making him blush a bright shade of red as he turned his head to stare at her in surprise. "Are you ablutioning?" She spoke with a smile, making him sputter incoherent words as he tried to get up, but it seemed Matsumoto seemed content laying on top of him. "Our Rangiku-san, we have to get up. You're gonna make the apartment cold," he verbalized while trying to gently push her by grabbing her shoulders. He grunted in exhaustion as his muscles were already at their limit. "As long as we are hot, it wouldn't matter," she spoke huskily while Naruto could feel his pants getting tighter. Damn it, he mentally sighed when an idea popped in his mind. Putting his hands in his pants pockets, he took out a black glove with a white skull before pressing it to his body. "There, let's get you up," his voice now baritone. Matsumoto's cheeks turned red when she found herself being lifted gently by Naruto's spiritual form. Slinging her arm over his shoulder, He walked her to the living room before making her sit on the couch when she again giggled. Walking back, he reached the open door to find several bulky bags laying on the floor. What has she been doing anyway? The blonde thought before entering his body. Picking up the bags, he closed the door before carrying those heavy bags to the living room, all the while ignoring his screaming muscles. You, he grunted, releasing those bags before turning to glare menacingly at Rangiku, who was currently staring at him with a smile. What's the meaning of this? He asked heatedly with narrowed eyes. Why did you go back in your body so soon? You look so hot in that. She pouted, making him blush. Shaking his head, Naruto walked towards her. Rangiku-san, I'm serious. At this time, you were there out, drunk, and alone. I thought you were at Oji-san's apartment. Do you know what could have happened out there? She adopted a thinking pose with her index finger under her chin. Ah, one guy did try to rape me. She exclaimed with a grin like it didn't affect her in any way, while Naruto's eyes widened at hearing that. Shit. Then, are you alright? He asked with concern reflecting in his oceanic blue eyes, making her heart flutter, which she just ignored in her drunken state. Of course. I just punched that gooey and then, he didn't get up. I shouldn't have hit him so hard. She again pouted, making him sigh as he chuckled to himself. No longer having the strength to stand, he just sat down cross-legged on the carpet, making her raise an eyebrow. Rubbing his right eye, he stared absent-mindedly through the window as Matsumoto too became uncharacteristically quiet. So, what's in those bags? He asked, too tired to check them himself. Oh, our food supply. She chirped while doing animated gestures, making Naruto raise his eyebrows. Food supply? He asked with curiosity when she giggled before hiccuping, making him chuckle. You can't live on ramen, Naruto-kun. You have to eat vegetables too, the green ones. His eyes widened as she smiled at him through half-lidded eyes. She did that for him. Why, you don't need to do that. I can live on ramen easily, and it contains vegetables too. And besides, you don't need to spend your money on me. He spoke as a frown appeared on her drunk expression. And where did you get the money from anyway? Oh, the old pervert gave it to me. She replied before speaking again quickly. And you have to eat at those vegetables. It's for you that I bought so much. I mostly remain on D diet, she stated in between her hiccups as warmth flushed Naruto's body. She had used her money to buy something for him. It had been only one day since he had met her, and still she does something like he's close to her. He had to survive on ramen, considering the shopkeepers would sell him vegetables and fruits at extremely high prices. Thanks, Rangiku-chan, he spoke in a low tone, giving her a true warm smile as a pink hue covered her cheeks. She nodded with a smile when he asked her, have you eaten something? Nope. I'm hungry. Naruto sighed as she pouted like a child. Standing up lazily, he started walking towards the kitchen. No more sake for you from now on, Rangiku-chan. Times KIP. 15 days later. Konoha, Ichiraku's apartment. And no more. I can't push any further, Ayame-chan. Come on, Naruto-kun. Harder, come on, push. Push harder. We have been doing this for an hour now. I can't go on any further. No. You can do it. Try harder. That's my tiger, come on. Go deeper. And no more. Thud. Here we find in the underground training area, Ayame and Naruto doing, actually. Hey Shiroi-san, if you had closed your eyes and just listened, then you would have thought that they were having, Rangiku, who along with Shiroi were sitting far away, spoke, making her blush. Rangiku-san, Shiroi exclaimed with a blush, making the blonde lieutenant, who was right now eating popcorn, look at her innocently. Away from them were both Ayame and Naruto, the latter right now laying flat on the ground as he panted to regain his breath. Alright, now that's 3 sets of push-ups today. From tomorrow, we're gonna make it 4, she spoke while signifying 4 with her fingers, making Naruto groan. He didn't even have the strength to argue with her. Slave driver, he mentally thought as slowly his breathing returned to normal. Stand up, Naruto, now that we're done with the warm-up. Let's do the Zanjutsu part, nay, she said with an innocent smile. What? I just finished doing 300 push-ups not minutes ago, he exclaimed, miraculously having the energy to jump comically and yell at her. Stop whining. Just use the Goken Teko, Soul Apprehension Gauntlet, and get out of your body, she stated while taking out her own Zanpakuto, making his eyes widen. Hey, at least give me some few minutes, my shoulders are numb here, he exclaimed while waving his hands frantically as she took her stance. 10 seconds is all you've got to get ready, Ayame verbalized with a serious expression on his face as Naruto took several steps back, his arms slumped at his sides when he turned his head. Rangiku-chan, help me. Best of luck, Naruto-kun. I know you can do it. His eyebrows twitched as she waved at him with a grin. The hell, I can do it, Dadbayo. You've 5 seconds, Naruto. And check your clock, damn it. He pointed with an accusing finger at Ayame. 3. Alright, I'm doing it. 2. Where is it? I can't find it. 1. Oh my god. I left it back at the apartment. Zir, really? Ayame asked while tilting her head. Of course not. I'm outta here. Her eyebrows twitched as Naruto yelled over his shoulder while running away from her. Get back here, she yelled before shunpoing to appear in front of him, making him skid to a halt. Sheesh, alright. I'm doing it, he grumbled before taking out the glove before pressing it to his chest. Yosh, he exclaimed in his adult Shinigami form before taking out Hineka, his body laying behind him. Not uttering another word, she dashed towards him before going for a slash at blurred speeds with dust inducing behind her. His eyes focused, he blocked her strike with his Zanpakuto, the sonorous sound of metal clashing reverberating throughout the arena as Naruto struggled under the force she was putting. Ayame smirked as she saw his shoulders trembling under the pressure, which were already exhausted due to the earlier workout. Sparks flew around the clashed swords as the blonde gritted his teeth, now on his knees. Damn it, he exclaimed, his one eye closed as Ayame continued to increase the pressure. Letting go, he vanished in a blur just at the last second before her Zanpakuto sliced thin air. Oh, your execution of Shunpo has improved, Ayame spoke as several meters away from her was a crouched Naruto who was panting with beads of sweat dripping down the side of his face. Hineka was stabbed into the dirt, supporting both of his shoulders by putting his hands on the tip of the hilt. Ayame-chan, I really can't go on any further. My muscles are burning, I'm at my limit. This is too much. He spoke while panting when he rolled sideways quickly, leaving Hineka with Ayame's Zanpakuto passing through thin air, where his neck was a minute ago. That's the point of your training, you have to exceed your limitations, both physically and mentally, she uttered while pointing her Zanpakuto at him with Hineka besides her, stabbed into the ground. Slowly standing up shakily, Ayame smirked when she felt him raising his Ryutsu. She then again dashed towards him, holding back some of her speed but was taken for the loop when Naruto too bolted towards her at amazing speeds, considering his exhaustion. What is he planning? She thought, surprised that he would attack head-on without any Zanpakuto in hand. Rearing her weapon, she went for a thrust at the side of his midsection as Naruto drew closer. What the? She thought in surprise when the blonde had blurred out of her vision just when her Zanpakuto was inches away. Through the corner of her eyes, she noticed him shunpoing towards Hineka as a small smirk played across her lips. Grabbing the hilt, the blonde pulled it roughly, his shoulder muscle screaming in protest as Heineke was lifted from the dirt. His oceanic orbs though zoomed out in reflex when Ayame appeared in a blur in front of him with the cold metal of her Zanpakuto approaching his arm. Show. Thrust, he exclaimed with his palm pointed at her, making her skid back with impressive force. She snapped her head up, staring at his panting form in surprise. He was able to pull that off. I didn't expect him to master the art of incantation abandonment to this degree in Kido, even though he can only do this in only the first Hado spell, she thought with her expression changing from surprise to acceptance. Wow. That was good, ne Rangiku-san. Shiroi spoke with a smile as Matsumoto nodded besides her enthusiastically. Yep, I knew. He had talent, she said while eating dango, now making the silver-haired plus sweat drop. So, you wanna play in Kido, huh? Ayame verbalized with a devilish smirk, making Naruto sweat bullets in nervousness. Ahehei. Well, let's just stick to Zanjutsu ne? He offered with a warm smile while scratching the back of his head. Hado no Sanjuni. Okusen Way of Destruction 32, Yellow Fire Flash. Damn you. Her Zanpakuto held horizontally, a yellow orb formed in front of the katana before it widened along the length of the metal. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw the yellow energy glowing brighter with each passing second before it fired off a yellow blast of energy in the form of a wide horizontal arc at him. Seeing the destructive attack approach him at lightning speeds, he spurted in the opposite direction as the attack chased him with Ayame in tow. Using several flash steps, he darted towards a large tree before running up its trunk using his momentum. Using the wooden bark as a springboard, he jumped backwards higher into the air just in time to avoid the energy blast which had completely decimated the tree. Ayame watched in amusement as the blonde tossed Heineke higher into the air, himself being in midair. Hado no Shi. Byakurai. Way of Destruction 4. White lightning. Her eyes widened in immense surprise when he pointed the index finger of his left hand in her direction to fire a concentrated white lightning bolt. Seeing his attack bolt towards her, he whispered. Bakudo no Yan. Hainawa Way of Binding 4. Crawling rope. Before a rope of yellow spiritual energy extended from his right hand to wrap around Heineke's hilt, which currently was sailing above him in midair. Gazing down, he was not so surprised to see Ayame use Seiki, repulsion Bakudo to block the beam of white lightning. Take this, he exclaimed while pulling the yellow rope with all his strength, making Heineke sail towards Ayame at thundering speeds before he released the rope. Using the crawling rope Bakudo to pull his Zanpakuto instead of its common use of binding, he sure is tweaky, Matsumoto thought with a smirk as she saw Heineke descend towards Ayame. Having just blocked his previous attack using Seiki, Ayame barely had time to use another Kido as she flash-stepped just in time to avoid the sharp projectile. Oh come on! Naruto exclaimed in a raspy voice as he landed on his unstable feet, panting heavily in exhaustion before falling backwards to lay on the ground. I didn't taught you any Bakudo spell, then I suppose Rangiku-san was the one. Opening his eyes, he saw Ayame's amused face. Yeah, Rangiku-chan taught me that, a real handy one, he muttered while wiping the sweat off his forehead. Bending down, Ayame placed her hands over his body as she started to heal him. Naruto though realized something as he noticed her healing his body. Hey Ayame-chan, I wanted to ask this before, but when you heal me, I also feel my Ryutsu getting replenished besides healing my wounds, of course. Why is that? He asked with a confused expression. Well, that's because in healing Kido, the user first replenishes the patient's Ryutsu and then using his own Ryutsu in combination with the user's one, his body is healed. Matsumoto spoke as he turned his head to see her and Shiroi walking towards them. You did great today, Naruto-kun. The silver-haired plus exclaimed with a smile as Naruto turned his eyes towards her, a sad expression coating his face as he gazed at her. Shiroi-chan, he muttered quietly before smiling weakly at her while Ayame healed. Yeah, tonight we perform the soul burial. It's her last day in the living world, Ayame thought with her lips curled down. All of their eyes though suddenly widened when they heard the similar sounds of the Darenshinki. Another hollow huh? The last one appeared the day before yesterday. The rate of their occurrences has been increasing constantly, Rangiku said seriously with Shiroi nodding with her. Otu-san's currently busy with something else, Ayame thought as she continued to heal Naruto. Ayame-chan, are you done? Naruto asked as he tried to get up while Ayame withdrew the green Raryoku. You're not completely healed but this should be enough. We gotta hurry, she uttered before placing the hood over the head with Naruto doing the same as he slowly stood up. Alright, I'm gonna head to the location and make sure civilians are safe, Matsumoto said as she sped off towards the exit with Ayame vanishing in a flash step. I'll see you later Shiroi-chan, he muttered with a weak smile making her smile back at him warmly before the blonde followed Ayame. Konoha. Kokura District. Damn it. Not again. We were attacked just 2 days ago. Hey, you inform any Chunin or higher ranking shinobi you find that there's another hollow attack here. A Junin yelled, commanding a Chunin who too happened to be near the area. Both of them were standing on a roof as they watched a huge hollow, its head reaching the roofs. Its body shape resembled like that of a tiger with a large white mask, covering most of its face, the skin being violet in color with black stripes. Right now, it had just entered through a garganta and was standing on all fours with its tail swishing madly behind it. Hi! The Chunin exclaimed before shining out of the area, the civilians now panicking as they rushed to find shelters from something invisible, something they had been encountering at increased rates for the past half a month, something they couldn't see, but could feel its evil presence, the suffocating pressure in the air. I can only see the outline just like before. I still really don't have any idea of how those 2 mercenaries that Hokage-sama hired, could see these creatures, and dispose off creatures like these, whose size rivals that of boss summons, the Junin thought as he watched a building being destroyed, gritting his teeth as he waited for the 2 mercenaries to do their job. Well, it's not like I can see those 2 clearly too. But this hollow summoning contract is something that any shinobi would be lucky to have, he muttered to himself before his eyes suddenly widened as he saw a small boy sitting in the middle of the streets, crying in fear while he could see the hollow slither in that direction with random civilians running away from the rumble being caused by each step it took. Please, help. Shit. He dashed at full velocity, diving forwards as he took the sobbing boy in his arms, dodging the large foot by mere inches. Rawr! The hollow howled, its anguish screams further mortifying the civilians as they sprinted in the opposite direction. Hey, you alright kid? The Junin asked as the boy kept sobbing in terror and fear, just shaking his head. Damn, what's taking those 2 so long? He thought in frustration as the hollow continued to slither through the streets, as if searching something. Alright you guys, make sure the civilians are safe and wait for those mercenaries. A silver-haired Junin ordered, a group of Chunins behind him who nodded before surrounding the perimeter in which the hollow was moving. So, it's moving like an animal this time, unlike the last one which was comparatively smaller in size, and resembled more of a human, the silver-haired Junin thought as he gazed at the moving hollow which was visible comparatively clearer to him than other Junins and Chunins. Kakashi-senpai, should we attack? The least we can do is at least hold the hollow down before they arrive. The same Junin from before spoke frantically after appearing besides the crouched figure of one Hatake Kakashi. No, we can't. Hokage-sama has clearly specified that we are not to engage these creatures. Seeing as most of our military force can't see hollows clearly enough, he doesn't want any of us to lose our lives in vain. Also, he has stated to keep our chakra levels low as it attracts these creatures more, so attacking them means raising our chakra output. There's a reason he's hired those mercenaries. They are hollow hunters and it's their speciality, seeing as they too see to know the same invisibility technique. He spoke in a stern voice, now following the hollow's movements. Still, I've never heard of any hollow summoning contract. But Hokage-sama did said that Orochimaru had gotten this contract recently. It is possible that he would attack Konoha like this. Could it be that he's planning something big? It's clear that he wants to destroy Konoha, the copy ninja thought as they jumped through the roofs, the Chunins evacuating the streets as they waited for the hired ones to do their job. Still, he muttered before lifting his headband, revealing the famed Sharingan. This is one thing I still don't get it. Not feeling any chakra from the hollows is one thing, but not being able to see their chakra networks even with the Sharingan or Byakugan is another thing. This really has to be some sort of extremely high-level jutsu to even hide their chakra systems from the dojutsus. All of them though suddenly stopped in their tracks. The hollow too had suddenly halted to stand still in between the streets. Shinigami, it exclaimed in a demonic voice while the other Chunins and Junins present there could only hear hazy sounds coming from the creature. Looks like we're a little late this time. Next time, I'll have to be more careful, Ayame muttered as she stood on a roof several meters away, her hooded Shinigami garb flowing with the light breeze. Ah, sorry Ayame-chan. Got a little held up back there. This pressure. They are here, Kakashi thought while he turned his head, Sharingan out as he searched for them. There they are. From the eye, they are just blurry black outlined figures. But with my Sharingan, just like the hollow, one of them is empty while strangely I can see a tiny amount of red chakra flowing through the other one's coils. Could it be that he or she has not been able to master this invisibility technique yet? He does seem to follow the lead of the other one every time, the silver-haired Junin thought as he stared at the two blurry figures, keeping his chakra level low. Let's go, Naruto exclaimed, his face covered by the black hood as both of Flash stepped to appear in front of the large hollow. That technique seems similar to the body flicker one, but again I don't feel them using any chakra. This whole thing about the hollows and these hunters is a mystery to me, but one that I definitely want to solve, Kakashi pondered with a serious expression as he watched the two hired shinobi vanish in a blur to appear in front of the hollow. Quite the big one, aren't you? Naruto whistled with Ayame standing besides him while the hollow's huge body shadowed their forms. Well, two Shinigami huh? It exclaimed as both the death gods took out their Zanpakuto. I wasn't X. Squelch. RWAAAARHHH. The hollow suddenly screamed in pain as the blonde Shinigami had Flash stepped to appear behind it and slice its tail off, blood gushing out violently. Yeah, the same old dialogue. I wasn't expecting you. I wasn't expecting that. Nawa. Go eat a bowl of ramen and think of something new, you predictable noob. He spoke, making Ayame sweat drop as the hollow growled menacingly. You bastard. It yelled as Naruto continued to stand there with a bored expression on his face, Hinata resting on his shoulders before he yet again shunput it to appear in front of its face. Wham! Who's the predictable one now, Shinigami? It growled after slamming its large hand onto the blonde's form, sending him flying towards a certain silver-haired Junin. Whoa! Whoosh! Kakashi exclaimed as he dodged assailing Naruto, who crashed deep into a shop, resulting into splinters of wood and broken glass pieces to fly out in all directions. Ayame sighed in exasperation as she shook her head. Guess I should finish this now, she muttered to herself before flash stepping to appear behind the hollow's head, her zanpakuto ready as she brought it down to slice it in half when suddenly she saw something coming out of the corner of her eyes. Solely on reflex, she shunput yet again to miss the large appendage that was about to crash onto her. What? Naruto-kun had already cut his tail just now, how did it grow back so quickly? Oh, guess this hollow possesses the ability of instant regeneration. Should have known that hollows entering this dimension would be special, she thought with a frown. Ah damn, I got carried away, Naruto mumbled as he threw off a table off him, dusting himself off before exiting the crumbled shop. Executing shunpo, he dashed towards the hollow using several steps to cover the distance while Kakashi continued to stare at them. Don't think you can sneak up on me so easily, Shinigami, it spoke before turning around to face Ayame, the streets now almost vacant with Chunins and a few Junins as spectators. Judging by the speed its tail moved, this hollow must be fast, real impressive considering his size. And its Ryutsu is intimidating too. I can say that he's on his way of becoming a Manos. Don't want to cause unnecessary destruction by using Shikai or something. Guess Kido should do the trick, Ayame thought when she spotted Naruto bolt towards them. Grinning to herself, she shunput out. Here I come Naruto thought as neared the hollow, Hinata clenched tightly in his hand. Came back for more Shinigami. It mocked as Naruto stopped several meters in front of it with a serious expression on his face, a single large nail of its clawed hand passing just a few inches in front of his body, barely missing his face as he landed on the ground. Well, aren't you fast? He muttered with a frown before turning his head just a bit, his eyes widening to massive proportions upon spotting a black figure high above in the sky. As that? Holy shit, she can fly, he pondered in surprise, but quickly understood what she was planning upon feeling the increase in her Ryutsu. He sighed, guess I'll just have to become the distraction part again, his fists clenched before the blonde took a deep breath. Lifting Hinata, he dashed towards the giant violet creature. It's useless Shinigami. It reared its claw before bringing it down on his blurry dashing form. The blonde used shunpo, avoiding the hand stomp before he began to spurt along its arm, bolting towards its face at full velocity. Meanwhile, Ayame, who was standing high above Konoha, started to build her Ryutsu. Disintegrate, you black dog of Rondanini. Look upon yourself with horror and tear out your own throat, she spoke while flash stepping at thundering speeds down nearer towards the hollow, her two index fingers pointed towards the creature. Bakudo no Q. Horan. Disintegrating circle upon the exclamation of the technique, an orange-hued tendril with spiraling yellow patterns shot towards the creature. You are fast, aren't you? Naruto stated in between dodging the hollow's attacks as he went for a slash at his mask. Clang. For his Zanpakuto to only clash with its claw, making him propel back at blazing speeds. Flipping himself over in midair, he used a wall as a springboard before recoiling back towards the hollow. Noticing something out of the corner of his eyes, he smirked as the orange tendril first wrapped around its tail before elongating to wrap around its other limbs, which was still connected to Ayame's index and middle fingers. Wah, what? I can't move. Looking above, the whiskered blonde's blue eyes met Ayame's brown ones. Increasing his speed, Naruto flash stepped to its head level before going for his mask. Hey, stop. Why can't I move? No. Og hhhhhh. Boom. Its body burst into a flash of white light, emitting a large amount of Ryutsu as the orange Kido rope 2 disintegrated while Naruto landed on the ground. It's over, I think, Kakashi muttered, covering his eyes from the light before it dimmed out. Kakashi, what's the situation? Any casualties? Asuma, the copy ninja asked in surprise when the bearded Junin had appeared besides him in a puff of smoke. Well, everyone's safe. A few were injured, but thankfully no one died, he sighed as Asuma stared at the scarred area due to the battle, the two hired ones no longer present. They sure are capable of disposing off these mysterious creatures. Hollows? Never heard of such a contract, Kakashi. Yeah, he replied while staring off into the sky as the Chunins began to search the district for any remaining civilians or casualties. Strange that I sense no chakra at all from these creatures as well as those two. It's like they aren't shinobi, more like something else, Asuma spoke while lighting his cigarette, surprised that Kakashi hadn't immediately started reading his literature. You're right. They don't behave like shinobi at all, only using either a katana or a zanabetu, attacking head-on and using strange powers, which definitely isn't ninjutsu. Sharingan huh? The Sarutobi predicted, making Kakashi nod. One of those mercenaries, I can see a small amount of red chakra flowing through their coils, he stated in a low tone, making sure no one was listening to them while Asuma's eyes widened in shock. Why you mean? Hi, there's a strong possibility that one of them is a Jinchuriki. But I still have my doubts. Silence reigned between the two except the distant sounds of the Chunins shouting and giving orders to some genins who had just arrived. You know, Asuma, I find it strange that these past 15 days, we are being constantly attacked. Something just does not feel right here. And the reports of some genins and chunins having, accidentally, seen these mysterious figures clearly, can you believe this? Even with my Sharingan, I can't see anything and yet they stated to have seen them clearly. This is something I don't understand. It means there may be a way to see them, and it also means that we wouldn't need to then depend on these hollow hunters. Kakashi, sometimes you're just too tense. Just let them handle the job, and it's better this way cause we can concentrate on the safety of civilians while they eliminate the threat. Asuma paused, releasing some smoke before continuing. Besides, even if we are able to see them, it's better if we do not engage them. If we fight, it's obvious we'll raise our chakra levels, and that's something that Hokage-sama has ordered everyone to avoid at all costs. According to him, who has previously engaged these types of creatures in the Second Great Shinobi War, chakra attracts them and in return they heavily feed on chakra. But if we follow what you have said about your Sharingan detecting no chakra, then isn't it better if we let these hunters handle these creatures as they too don't use chakra? I think they are perfectly suited for the job here, and it helps that our military force isn't prone to any injuries in the process. I guess you are right, he sighed when an Anbu appeared in a puff of smoke behind them. Hitaki Kakashi, Hokage-sama requests your presence in his office immediately, he spoke in a monotone voice. Hi, I'll be there in just a minute. Konoha. Ichiraku's apartment. So how did it go? Shiroi asked as Naruto entered his body while Ayame flopped herself on the couch. As usual. He stated following Ayame's answer with a frown. What happened, Naruto? Matsumoto asked in a serious tone, making him sigh in exhaustion, his physical body worn out due to the earlier workout. I wasn't able to do anything except provide the finishing blow. As usual, Ayame-chan held it down for me, he muttered while running his hands through his locks. Relax, Naruto-kun. These hollows are not weaklings, their level is at least that of a seated officer in a squad. So it's quite understandable that you're not able to stand up to them. Don't get discouraged though, your progress these 15 days has been astounding to say the least. Honestly, I wasn't expecting you to come this far in such a short amount of time. Just keep training and the results would become more visible to you. But what about my shinobi career? My chakra is more stable than before, but still not to the point to perform ninjutsu. I still can't do the shadow clone technique, remember? He asked in bitter voice. You have high Raryoku reserves, Naruto. It's apparent that it would be a difficult task to control such large reserves. You have to be patient. I know you desperately want to graduate this time, but be patient. I'm sure you'll be able to form stable chakra by the end of month, she spoke with a smile, lifting him somewhat. Nodding silently, Naruto smiled a bit when he felt a hand on his shoulder. I do believe in myself, Shiroi-chan. I just wish you didn't have to die so soon. I wonder though, had you not died, would our fates been connected in the same way? Would I have been able to form a special bond with you, or would I have remained the same, demon, to you? He thought as his eyes automatically lowered to her midsection, where the chain of fate was linked to. Look at that, she's on her last encroachment cycle. Figures why Oji-san insisted that today had to be the last day. Any more, we'll be risking her for transforming into a hollow, a forlorn look on the blonde's face as he sighed quietly to himself. Where's Oji-san? Ayame-chan? Naruto asked, breaking the silence. Oh, well, he had to take care of some business, she spoke quietly, her eyes closed as she sat relaxed on the couch. His eyes narrowed a bit suspiciously at her answer, but nevertheless he just shrugged it off. He had other things on his plate already. Matsumoto though was staring at Naruto. She had seen the look of sadness that had dusted his eyes for a brief moment before he had hardened himself. She didn't know much about Shiroi's and his relation, but in these past 15 days, the blonde lieutenant had felt a strong thread of warmness and care that connected these two. It looked there was a chain of fate connecting these two, invisible to even the Shinigami. San wouldn't be back for the next few days, but, Ayame started as she took a deep breath before opening her brown eyes as she stared at Shiroi, who nodded at her to continue. But, we have to perform the soul burial today, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry, she mumbled, not meeting his gaze as she stared at the floor. She knew that this would happen. After all, they were the one who had delayed Shiroi's Kanso in the first place. They had allowed the encroachment up until the last day possible, and Shiroi had to deal with strong spasms of pain several times after the end of each cycle. All right, where? He asked with a hardened look in his eyes, his heart heavy as if a huge burden was placed on his shoulders. You guys decide, Ayame answered in a quiet sad tone while Rangiku stayed silent. She was used to this. As a Shinigami, they had to get rid of their emotions when escorting pluses to the other worlds. They too had to mask their emotions, just like a shinobi. It was not something they could choose from, not something they were taught in the academy or were asked to do, not something that was imposed on them via rules or the Central 46. It was a necessity, a code they had to follow which they learned from experience. The Hokage monument, his eyes widened when he heard her voice, she had spoken immediately. Turning his head back, he saw Shiroi smiling at him, her eyes filled with warmness, so many emotions he found himself unable to understand or decipher at that moment. Why, you sure? Surely he was taken aback. That was the place they had talked to each other on friendly terms for the first time, when there was no hostility between them. She just nodded, her eyes getting a bit glossy as she tightened her hold on his shoulders. Turning his head back quickly, he clenched his eyes shut before taking a deep breath. This was hard, he didn't know it would be this painful. All his life, he wanted to create these bonds. But, he never knew how it felt to have these bonds severed, to say goodbye to your most precious persons. Opening his eyes slowly, he again took a deep breath, trying to push back the tears he knew were coming. Clutching his pants tightly, he bit his lower lip while staring absent-mindedly at the carpet. Lifting his head, his eyes briefly met Rangiku's sky-blue ones. She smiled a bit hesitantly at him, her eyes gaining a soft look while he could only avert his gaze, an expression of pain on his usually cheerful face. She on the other hand was taken aback. In these 15 days, the lieutenant had never seen him so down. Even when he was training, and things looked like they weren't getting any better, he never gave up and always tried to hit the target with more vigor. It was heartbreaking to see him in such a state. Ayame still had her eyes closed, as if she was trying to ignore all what was happening. The tense silence in the room, as if trying to ignore the reality. Naruto shifted his gaze towards the window to notice the sun already setting down. So, a few hours is all she's got, he ruminated with his eyes feeling heavy, already feeling tired due to the day's events. Putting his hands on his knees, he stood up a bit wearily. Shiroi-chan, let's go, he voiced quietly, making her eyes widen a bit in surprise while Ayame opened her eyes. Turning his head back, he glanced briefly towards Rangiku and Ayame, as if relaying a message. I'm waiting outside, the blonde mumbled as he walked languidly towards the exit, his shoulders slumped due to all the exertion, physically as well as emotionally. So, I guess this is goodbye then you guys, Shiroi stated with a poignant smile while Ayame stood up, a melancholic smile framing her expression. Walking up to the silver-haired plus, she enwrapped her in a tight hug as they stayed quiet for a few seconds. Thanks Shiroi-chan. Because of you, Naruto-kun was able to feel love, friendship, trust and so much more. In a mere month, you filled him completely. Thank you very much, and I will always remember you. It's just like I'm saying goodbye to my sister, she muttered, her voice calm as Shiroi tightened her hold on Ayame. Thank you Ayame-chan. Thank you versus very much, she replied in a quivering voice, a lone tear streaming down her cheek before she released her. Wiping her cheek and eyes, she shifted her gaze towards Matsumoto. Rangiku-chan, she voiced in a low tone, nodding at her, making the lieutenant pout. What? No hug for me? Shiroi giggled lightly before hugging her tightly. Thank you for protecting Naruto-kun, and training him too. It's because of you, that he's filled with hope now, that he can pursue his dreams now. Thank you Rangiku-chan, the blonde lieutenant nodded with a smile as she patted her back gently. Yeah, I'll protect him. With the loneliness and pain he suffered, he needs all the support he can get. Don't worry, he's in safe hands now. And oh, try that sake in Rukongai I told you about. I'll come and visit you from time to time there, and who knows, you may even become a Shinigami, she spoke softly with a giggle when suddenly Shiroi's body jerked a bit in surprise. Shinigami? Then does that mean I have a chance of meeting Naruto-kun again? She asked with hope in her widened eyes while Rangiku shook her head with a sad look. Shiroi-chan, when you enter Soul Society, most probably you will lose all your memories of your time in the living world, she hated to break it to her, to crash her hopes, but this was the truth. Releasing each other from the hug, Shiroi bowed to both of them with a teary smile. Oh well, I was able to do something useful with my life at least. It was great knowing you too. And say my goodbyes to Tsuki-san and Hokage-sama, they have been a great help too, both of them nodded as Shiroi turned around to leave. Time skip. Several minutes later. Konoha, Hokage's monument. Standing on the Yondaime's head, both of them stared at the setting sun in silence. Neither of them knowing what to say, it was something they knew was coming, but a cold reality they couldn't come to terms no matter from what angle you looked at it. Both of them were going to get hurt, one of them losing her memories with the other one having to live with the emotional anguish of the memories he would cherish for the rest of his life. So, Shiroi started, trailing as she noticed his body visibly stiffen. Her eyes grew soft as he continued to gaze at the orange-tinted sky, the sun setting down as the breeze started to get colder. I guess, this is it Naruto-kun, she stated delicately, turning her head towards him while it started to grow dark. Naruto though just closed his eyes, drowning himself into that specific memory, that fateful day. Flashback. Almost a month ago. TCHH. Stupid woman, I only wanted to talk to her. Not that I would go, demon, on her even after she's dead. Gigi said that your life flashes back before your eyes just when you're about to die, that at that moment, you instantly know what you did right and what you did wrong. At that moment, you're flooded with every possible emotion. That you feel guilty for the things you did wrong. But then, even after their deaths, they continue to call me demon, ignore me, they still try to beat me when I do nothing but try to take away their loneliness. Hands in his pocket as he walked towards the monument, the only place he found himself at peace. I know how it feels to be alone, to be ignored, to not be noticed. His tone turned sadder as his steps became sluggish. It was late chilly night as the moon shone upon the faces of the previous leaders of Konoha. I only wanted to talk to her, to help her. Is that so much to ask? He asked himself, really feeling down. Nothing was working out for him, no matter how hard he tried to make some friends, to make people notice him, it always ended up backfiring at him. He was like it to them, no matter what he did, no matter wherever he crawled to, they were disgusted by him, they ignored him and enjoyed stomping on him. He was so sick of all this. He sometimes thought of leaving this village, but the fact he could become stronger here held him back. He was attending the academy, he wanted to get stronger. Why? He didn't know, maybe to prove these idiots that he was not a failure. But to become a shinobi, the basic requirement was chakra. Without that, it was almost a lost cause. No matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, it all seems lost to me. I mean, what am I even doing at this place? No one teaches me anything, making friends and doing other stuff is out of the question. I think that it's better that I leave Konoha for good, talking to himself. Yeah, he might be going crazy. But who knows, maybe Kami may hear him if he talks, instead of pondering to himself about this. Maybe someone would hear this, and not ignore him for once. I have to find a place where someone can solve my chakra problem, but where? He muttered to himself, his head lowered as he neared the monument. Thap. You. He grunted in pain, stumbling onto his steps as he fell down on his knees. His hands reflexively went to his forehead, blood dripping down his face. Who's there? The blonde snarled with narrowed eyes, his world spinning as he shook his head. The injury was already being healed. Looking down, he noticed it was a large pebble, its edge sharpened. The gash on his forehead healed quickly while blood covered most part of his face. Feeling himself being healed at inhuman speeds, or rather at a normal pace for him, he grabbed the rock before standing up wearily. Oh sorry, did that hurt? I'm really sorry, I was just practicing a game we used to play. What was the name of the game again? Oh right, kill the demon. His eyes widened upon hearing that voice. Snapping his head up, he saw the same silver-haired woman as she mocked him with a smirk on her face, another pebble in her hands. Naruto gritted his teeth, his breathing becoming labored as he rubbed his forehead. Even with his astounding healing rates, it was winter time and it hurt greatly. His world began to go red as he tightly clenched his fists, the large pebble cracking under the sheer pressure. Oh, is the demon angry? So sad that you can't even touch me. I guess dying does have some positive effects after all. What can yo? Her voice trailed as suddenly a tremendous pressure filled the air, the oxygen becoming suddenly too difficult to breathe in. She was immediately on her knees, the chain linked to her chest clashing to the ground as she began panting. Lifting her head, her eyes widened as she noticed glowing purple lightning sparks crackle around his body. What's going on? She gasped while trying to stand up. Her eyes again widened though when he lifted his head. His whisker marks had deepened, the blonde locks spikier while his fangs and nails had lengthened. His eyes, she thought while staring at him, sweat pouring down her face. I don't even need to touch you, he spoke in a cold tone, his voice gaining a demonic edge as he stared at her with those eyes. They were flickering between two shades constantly. One second they would red with black slits, and other they would be a glowing shade of purple, as if electricity was coursing through them. Dust began to pick up as he stood there, glaring at her with malice while a gust of spiraling wind flew outwards with him being the epicenter. Her eyes widened in slow motion, when he suddenly vanished in a burst of glowing blue lightning to appear in front of her, the large stone still in his hands. Naruto growled in anger as he reared his hand while she immediately closed her eyes in fear. So he is a demon after all, she thought, petrified by the aura he was emitting right now. Even though the silver-haired woman believed that he couldn't touch her, a soul, she still couldn't help but be intimidated by him, the piercing high-pitched sound of the buzzing lightning almost deafening to her. Suddenly, the sound came to an abrupt stop as she kept her eyes shut, her hands trembling in fear while the only thing she could hear was his labored breathing. Slowly opening her eyes, hesitantly she was surprised to see the rock inches away from her forehead while the boy had a paralyzing expression on his face. It's no use. I am just a demon to you guys. His pupil was vibrating slightly as he stood there in trance while she stared at him with wide eyes. If I attack you, I'm a demon. If I don't, you provoke me into doing so. It's like, you, everybody. His voice began to quiver as he clenched his eyes shut, his hand trembling in front of her forehead. You want me to be the demon. You want me to become an abomination, so you can me. He exclaimed loudly as the rock fell on the ground while she continued to stare at him with widened eyes. What is he? She cogitated in astonishment, surprised to see him act like this. Usually, the only emotion she saw on the boy's face, even when she was alive, was that grin, the everlasting smile on his face. It angered the elders somehow. It was like he was mocking them, mocking their relatives who he hated all those years ago. F you. This rotten place. He seethed through gritted teeth, pulling his hand back as much to her disbelief. Tears started to escape through his tightly clenched eyes. Hokage. Shinobi. He yelled loudly, a sob escaping his lips. Her heart scrunched painfully at the sight. He was crying, he really was. Demons don't see cry. He's really crying, she thought, as if unable to believe so. She had never seen the boy down, but it was like he exploded right in front of her. Like he was feeling all those emotions at the same time. The anger, the pain, hurt, betrayal, rage, he was losing it. Strangely, she wanted to comfort him. No, this couldn't be a demon. This child, crying in front of her, she could feel his pain. Her guardians had told her that he was the Kyuubi reincarnate, that he was the Kyuubi who had taken so many lives that day, who hated her parents. Did they mean this child, the one crying in front of her? Lifting his hands, Naruto began to swiftly wipe his cheeks and eyes, biting his lower lip to control himself. He breathed a sharp intake of air, opening his wet eyes which he wiped by the fabric of his black jacket. The only sounds that could be heard was the cold breeze flowing across them along with his random sniffing sounds. No, I have to control myself. I wouldn't cry, not in front of her. He mulled over bitterly, a frown forming on his face as he rubbed his eyes furiously to get rid of any moisture. The woman in front of him, though, sat there frozen in shock as she continued to gaze at him. Not saying any word, he started to walk by her after shadowing his face with the hood of his jacket. The woman, though, just followed his form with her eyes when he suddenly stopped beside her. I hope your life went well here. Mine surely wouldn't, he muttered quietly, loud enough for her to hear before putting his hand on her shoulder, making her eyebrows shoot up in immense surprise. What is he? He can touch me. Then why didn't he? Coming out of her thoughts, she noticed him no longer standing beside her. Turning her head back, she saw his retreating form as he walked lazily away from her. Her mind raged with so many considerations right then. Should she follow him? The one, who was a demon to her minutes ago. But the way he suddenly stopped crying, it meant that he was holding back his emotions, his pain. There was definitely more to this boy than his appearance in general public signified. No, I have to find out about this. They told me to stay away from him, to shun him, that hurting him was a good thing and would make my parents proud of me. Is he really a demon? The stone rolling out of her left hand, she slowly stood up when Naruto suddenly stopped walking, making her breathing hitch in her throat. She stood there standing like a rod, afraid that he might do something now. Her face though adopted a confused expression when he began walking towards an alley to his left. What is he doing? Her voice hoarse as she mumbled to herself. Intent on finding more about him, she began to take wobbly steps towards the alley, her heart racing as she reached the corner. Poking her head tentatively around the corner, she watched him as he sat there, some scrap materials and cardboards laying beside him while he seemed to be making something out of them. Living out here must be hell, nay little guy. His voice was still quivering, he was sniffing as he seemed to be talking to someone. He must be crying again, she thought with sadness, disturbed about this. Just then, a small head protruded from the open zipper of his jacket. Yup. Yeep. It was a small puppy. He seemed to chuckle in response, making a box large enough to accommodate the small resident as he wiped something on his shadowed face. Just wait a little more buddy, it's almost done, he chalked. Was he still crying? Shiroi immediately leaned back as she stood against the wall, a hand on her chest while she had an alarmed expression on her face. What's happening here? This isn't supposed to be happening. She clutched her head, not knowing what to do. What was she to understand by all this? The so-called demon cared, he had a heart. What he was doing right now was an act of a caring and a kind person, not a demon that everyone so much hated. Taking a deep breath, she leaned back again. There, it's all done. You can sleep now, he spoke in a hoarse voice before taking out the little puppy out of his jacket. I would have taken you to my apartment, but you wouldn't be safe there. After all, whatever belongs to me is not safe, he chuckled to himself while rubbing the puppy's head as it wagged its tail happily while it yipped back in response. Besides, I think I'm leaving this place tomorrow. There's nothing left for me here now. Well, there's Ayame-chan, Tsuki-oji-san and Gigi there, but I don't think they would be that affected by me leaving this place, he uttered, his face hooded while the puppy's bright eyes dimmed, as if it could feel the sadness, pain and loneliness radiating off Naruto. Would take you with me, but the thing is that, his voice began cracking, the white puppy moaned as it dropped its head whereas her eyes gained a soft look while she gazed at his bent form. Moisture gathered in her eyes involuntarily when she noticed drops of transparent liquid falling on his right hand, which was on the puppy's head. It moaned again, its tone sad as the blonde spoke again. Why UW would be treated here, better than me, much better than me. Again a few sobs escaping him when the puppy began licking the tears off his hand. Oh, sorry there pal. I made UW wet, he stuttered with a chuckle, sniffing to pull back the tears. By now, even unknown to herself, tears were freely streaming down the cheeks of the silver-haired woman as she stared at the child in front of her. Leaning back, she put a hand over her mouth to control herself. Shutting her eyes, She took deep breaths so as to control herself, not wanting to make noise. Oh Cammy, what have we done? She thought with wide eyes, every heartbeat being painful to her as more tears fell down her chin. A few muffled sobs seeped through her covered mouth, when her eyes widened upon hearing him say goodbye to the puppy. Pushing up against the wall, she stood up before running to hide in another neighboring alley. Peeking her head around the corner, she saw him walking towards the Hokage's monument. Just when she was about to follow him, a voice behind her startled her. You still think he's a demon? Snapping her head back, she saw a hooded person wearing a black garb. Judging by her voice, she was a female. Who are you? The silver-haired woman stammered as she frantically wiped her tears, surprised that someone could see her. Consider me that boy's well-wisher. But tell me, do you still think he's a demon? The stranger again asked, making her shake her head furiously. Oh, of course not. I would be a fool to believe in all that crap after just what I saw. Well, you were a fool in the first place to believe such ridiculous accusations on a boy who has done nothing to harm this village or anyone. The plus head dropped down in sadness and shame. Well, I'll make up for it. What I couldn't do while I was alive, I'll do it while being dead. I will make sure he isn't lonely again. She spoke with determination, lifting her head to surprisingly find no one. Then go. He's on the Yondaime's head right now. The voice came from all directions, making her confused, but she just shrugged it off for now. Nodding to herself, she wiped her cheeks with the fabric of her sleeve before rushing towards the boy who deserved so much more than what fate had given him so far. I wouldn't let him suffer anymore. Konoha. Hokage's monument. Let's see. Leaving Konoha would not be easy. They can't declare me as a missing nin considering I'm still not a shinobi officially. But Gigi might send some Anbu after me. I have to make it so that they don't come to know about my absence immediately, Naruto muttered to himself as he gazed at the moon, sitting on the monument with his knees pressed up to his chest. I guess I have to leave early in the morning. For food, instant ramen will have to do while I think some kunai and shuriken would be necessary. And the place I should check first, can't be Suna considering Konoha is in alliance with it. Right now, Kiri is undergoing a bloodline war or something. Iwa too is out of the question, so that only leaves Kumo, he mused to himself as his eyes dropped down to his ninja sandals, releasing a puff of fog with his breath due to the chilling cold. His eyes narrowed upon hearing someone coming up there via stairs. Standing up, he turned back to see the same silver-haired whom he had tried to befriend earlier today. What do you want? He growled with anger in his voice. He knew she was there spying on him in the alley, but he didn't care. Not that she could tell the others that he was unleashing his wrath on a puppy. She, though, just stood there with a sad expression on her face while his eyes widened upon noticing the tear stains on her cheeks. Was she crying? I just wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier. I was just an idiot to think that you were the demon that everyone calls you. Please forgive me, she exclaimed before suddenly lowering herself to her knees, bowing to him as her forehead touched the floor. Naruto, though, to say the least, was flabbergasted. He couldn't decipher what had happened for her to act like this as he gawked at her. Stop that. I know it's just another lame trick to try to make my life more hellish than it already is. Well then, guess what? I'm leaving this village, and you wouldn't be able to tell anyone considering that you're dead. He spoke with a dark smirk on his face when her body started to shake a bit. Please, don't leave. Her quivering voice struck a chord in his heart, but he just chose to ignore it. Oh, I will ignore it and I will leave this shithole. And stop that acting, will you? You're horrible at it and it's useless anyway. The blonde seethed with a frown on his face as he prepared to take off. There's no reason for me to be here. Here, I have no purpose in life. With manipulative bastards like you, I'm done for if I continue to stay here, he spoke bitterly, his back turned to her. He didn't like being so cruel to anyone, nor did he like to say such things to anyone, but he didn't care anymore. It was over for him here in Konoha. With no chakra, I can't hope to become a shinobi. And with nobody helping me here, it's no use staying in Konoha anymore. My decision is final. I'm leaving. Weighing his options for the final time, he took his final decision while nodding to himself. Yeah, being Hokage was a lost cause with no chakra. Goodbye, whoever you are. You are one of the very few persons in my life who have talked to me for more than 5 minutes, he uttered with a bitter chuckle, gazing at shining moon from the monument for possibly the last time. Just as Naruto was about to jump, not suicide, his eyes suddenly widened when he found himself wrapped in a tight hug from behind. Please, I beg you, don't leave. She yelled as he began to struggle against her grip. Hey, leave me, what are you trying to do? I'm not that easy to take down. Oh Onagai, her voice now desperate as she clutched him to herself tightly, his oceanic blue eyes widening upon feeling warm droplets on his neck and scalp. She really is crying. Why? He thought, finding it so hard to believe that he had just ignored her tear stains earlier without giving it any second thought. What will you do out there? Where will? Why you go? Here at least Hokage-sama looks after you. She exclaimed loudly, her eyes clenched shut as tears openly cascaded down her face, flowing with the cold breeze. Naruto could feel his resolve weakening, the warmth she was emitting was so enticing to him that he never wanted to leave her embrace. He so much wanted this. But, why the sudden change of heart? Just some minutes ago,